They did, experiments with their 192 lasers, all focused on one tiny little spot to create 180 million degrees of heat at 500,000 psi, more or less. And they could not create fusion. And they knew they could not create fusion. They tried multiple times and gave it up because it doesn't work. So we can just look at it. They started actually on April Fool's Day 2012. I think they started on April Fool's Day. Ha ha ha. Fooled you. You're dead now. But it didn't happen for them. And of course, the real threat about university is 1,000 different things, but one of them is that they hold more bioweapons, more biological weapons of mass destruction in the universities across this planet than in any government anywhere in the world. They hold that and can release that. And there are people inside the university, students and professors and all, who know that. Anyway, a proton is a mass accelerated by a supernova event, an exploding star. So it gets its push from that explosion, and then it is closed by a neutron, which is created by a pulsar ejection. A pulsar is a black hole that is pushing out a little bit of energy in one spot that goes across the universe itself at amazing speed, way beyond speed of light. So when these meet together, the pulsar energy wraps the neutron, or it wraps the mass of a proton, and it creates an element of atom, or an element. And elements are based upon, what's the direction of the how fast is it moving, which direction does it go, what size is it, and so on. So anyway, let's go on. So, size, shape, the amount of neutron deposited, the distance from the ejection port, the different characteristics, including deformation of spherical issues of an atom, and the combining elements forces push and pull energy creates the spin enclosed, and it is a much faster spin than the speed of light. Speed of light is just what humanity can measure. That's all it is. That's the fastest that we can measure, so therefore that's the end. Not so. The sun creates heat by the frictional release of atoms forced to be glancing into each other. In other words, if you put a whole bunch of tops on a table and they're all spinning, and they are allowed to glance into each other in an instant, all of those tops are beaten into each other and causing a lot of friction and a lot of heat to be released, because that's what they do. So, by removing the neutron a little at a time, it releases light in the process, like little toy tops bumping into each other. Once enough of that environment, the neutron environment, has been destroyed, the mass of kinetic energy on the inside escapes and becomes heat released into outer space. So we have the force of heat is as it radiation, it shakes, is what radiation is. It shakes really, really fast, pushes it. And the neutron, however, being opposite of a kinetic response, which means it pushes out, a kinetic response pushes out, and the neutron, being dark energy, pulls in, and it functions to some degree to create solar gravity. It's not the full effect, but it is part of solar gravity. And it's part of why the sun is able to continue years after years after years, because what is not heat, the opposite of heat, is cold. And the opposite of pushing out is pulling in. And that means the neutron goes, or at least part of the neutron goes into the core of the sun and cools it down. Kind of like throwing water on it. So, and that creates the longevity. So the law of thermodynamics demands that heat release occupies more space than cold. You can see that with a candle. Therefore, like the candle flame, the heat rises from the fuel source and sucks the fuel into that flame, which means there's an unoccupied space above the sun mass that is at the core of the sun, where no flame exists. As with a candle, the flame is sucked, or the fuel is sucked up into the rise heat as that heat source invades and releases the fuel of atoms into the fire itself. Or a solar tornado, which means a tornado that looks like a tornado on the sun in the fire. It means a dense mass of rock has been found by the fire and is not willing to release itself. So the fire sucks down and intensifies on that area until it breaks apart, and then suddenly it is ejected into that fire and becomes a solar flare on the outside. Which it means that the mass, all the fuel didn't burn up in the fire before it escaped. So heat causes the flame to rise as it goes further from the fuel source. It cools and then it drops closer to that fuel. That's the 11-year cycle. In other words, if the closer the fire is, the more intense it becomes because more fuel is sucked in. But more fuel sucked in creates more heat, and more heat is a thermodynamic law that requires more space. So it goes further and further away until the fire itself cools a little bit, and when it cools a little bit, then it draws back down, and it repeats as an 11-year cycle. So gravity is assigned by the disciplines of law, which begin as a spinning mass has energy of that mass in motion. That's where the atomic energy comes from. The spin of an atom inside a neutron, which means it's not influenced by our physical world. That spin is time, and that spin is energy. And when we have an atomic bomb, that means all that energy is released at one moment, at 1 second, whatever you want to call it. So that's how much energy there is, and you can multiply the speed by determining how many atoms are in an atomic bomb, and so on and so on. So you can, we have to have a neutron to create a spinning mass, and to contain that spinning mass, you have to have, you can view it as a rock. You're going to roll the rock around on a string. And the string has to be stronger than the force of mass pulling it out. So we know that the neutron itself has more energy to hold it back, or it escapes into space. So every atom does contain energy of motion. That kind of energy of motion. And that is what creates time. And the spinning part creates electricity, and the electricity is what we use as time to generate the energy that we need for motion. That's what we do. Or that's how life exists, or time exists. Nonetheless, you got to have the opposite energy of that anchored motion to offset and control the motion or kinetic motion of time. And the controlled release of that atomic motion is by the electrons, which will exist to bleed off the energy and become fusible then to us as time. Therefore, we know that a mass is to be found in kinetic and force, while the neutron is to be found as dark energy to anchor that kinetic force. And the neutron is then gravity, and its existence requires a slight bit more force to contain the energy of that mass in motion, as is the reality of law, which is the basis of gravity itself. A bigger mass contains more neutron energy than a small one, thereby an attraction. Prove me wrong. Because the ignition of a nuclear fire is literally all the experiments and machines of what universities can do. There is no fusion. And there is no control over fire, which by their estimates contains million-mile-long flames. They're insane. The human curse of fools in charge of our lives, that's the university, extends to the betrayal of all life on Earth by university genetics and the religion of evolution. Everything on Earth is actually built by thought. If you don't think, you can't move. There is nothing. Everything about complexity is about thought. As we all know, chaos or evolution in its other form of lies builds nothing. Claiming not even a brain was used for billions of years, which means they had no way of measuring anything, no way of learning anything, no way of choosing anything, no way of detecting anything. No decision of any kind can exist without some form of a brain. But by their religion of evolution, these terrorists betray life on Earth by injecting chaos into our nature. They believe. They are believers in their religion. As all religions are. The religion creates believers, and believers are absolutely certain this is right. But of course, wrong is wrong. So they're experimenting with our lives and destroying the future with their proven satanic beliefs and delusions. And they are, really beyond insane. They claim that genetics can be manipulated one step at a time to wipe away every tear. They make promises like all liars do, like all traitors do. And they're going to keep all humanity alive on Earth because the university is their God. They're going to do everything, they're just great. However, all the threats of our own extinction prove them wrong. Stupidity and arrogance and disgrace and cult of lies has never been more wrong in the history of life on Earth. Nature does not build itself one piece at a time. They are nature or genetics are like an orchestra in sympathy. Life builds a body of renewal all at the same time, with materials selected, transported, changed, bound together, isolated from each other, timed by a billionth of a second, treated like your skeleton, one piece at a time, lubricated one piece at a time as your joints prove true, with hundreds of muscles woven and interlaced all at the same time. Now, how did they do that without a brain? You can't do that. Even if we throw you a whole living, the parts and pieces of a living body, can you put it together? No, you can't. You can't even put it together. So, the fact that it builds itself. Every living thing is designed by thought. It's all a miracle. It really is creation itself. And we know that by the muscles that you have. They're not an accident. Your eyes are not an accident. Your fingers, your touch, your everything is not an accident. If there was a body that didn't have arms or legs or something, that would not. Evolution has no basis of any kind. None. It's a complete and utter fabrication, a lie of stupidity and disgrace. A failure in so many ways. Every living thing is designed by thought, and we can't build any of it. And there are laws which control the forces that build us, which are in fact beyond our imagination as humanity. Yet to your shame, you let the dead brain of human sewage that is called science religion. Because the university is God. Destroy life on Earth with your own putrid arrogance. A complete disrespect for life and truth. To pursue your own wants to be God. Shame on you. The evolutionists are a liar's diaper of fools. Literally, it's just a liar's diaper. Because there is no going back, no second chances in truth. Ignite in a nuclear fire, you're going to die. It is that simple. Even if the universe say, well, no, you're not. They have no proof of that. None. Nor do they have any proof of anything. They have no, they claim that an atomic bomb proves whatever they say about the sun is true, but an atomic bomb doesn't prove anything about the sun. No, just like an explosion doesn't prove anything about a fire. Very, very little. Or as is the constant curse of humanity, we believe. That is the constant curse of humanity. We believe, therefore it is true. And that's how wars begin. Somebody creates gossip, and then somebody uses ridicule to make them an enemy, and then somebody calls them worthless, and at that point, it's go ahead and kill them because they're worthless. We believe. But that doesn't make it true. It doesn't control life or declare what is true enough for me. Either, you get your head out of the university's ass. It's that simple. Stop believing in cult leaders and question them. Or more correctly, use redress of grievances to investigate and prove to yourself by the evidence, not by their belief, by the evidence, not by your belief, not by my belief, by the evidence, prove what is true and prove the price of being wrong. And then, of course, take back your world from the satanic cult that's called a university. And it's so clearly determined to destroy life on Earth, as is evidenced by all the threats of extinction which surround us, and the consequences of hell, the constant of life. That force will continue its journey unless it dissipated into extinction. Hades just will not let that happen, as is a nuclear fire. The critical question becomes, does your life remain in that force forever? In other words, can your truth, not your beliefs or any of that, but your truth, can it survive beyond time? And if it's a force, can it be multiplied into the force that would be a fire? But these are whole different questions. Or we can go with, how do molecules combine into more complex structures, and the answer to that is the rhythms have to combine together. A spin of a proton atom mass inside a neutron creates a rhythm. How many times does it spin around? It creates a frequency. And of course, if the frequencies match, then the molecules can come together and stay together. And if the frequencies do not match, they cannot be joined, and if the frequencies barely match, they can be caused to explode. These are just simple things. So, as far as our decision goes, as far as this first part of this filing, the first filing for this lawsuit goes, it's about creating the environment for redress, which means that not only do we have to discuss the complete insanity of trying to ignite a nuclear fire, lost your brain, where to go, there is none, stupidity of that. But we also have to discuss everything else. We have to discuss, where we're at, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and so on. We have to make a decision as a nation, or as a world, about what we want our world to be. So then we look at, how did the court respond to all of this? So, let's see. The complaint, it's a little bit hard to read. The complaint against the United States of America, and that's just part of the thing. Alright, let's just read it. The text order says, a review of the plaintiff's complaint with a few threshold concerns. To begin, Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 8 details the types of material. Just a minute. Alright, so we're going to read it this way. A review of the plaintiff's complaint raises a few threshold concerns. To begin with, Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 8 details the type of materials that all complaints must contain. They must set forth a short and plain statement of both the grounds which the court's jurisdiction on the claim, showing the plaintiffs entitled to relief. Federal Civil Rule 8. The parties must make a demand for relief they seek. Plaintiff's complaint satisfies none of these requirements. It does not invoke any recognized ground for the court's jurisdiction. It does not set forth any cognizable legal claims, and it does not make a coherent demand for a legal remedy. Instead, the plaintiff's complaint lists grievances against the United States, the media, and certain unnamed universities who plaintiff insists have all perpetrated criminal assaults on our democracy. And they have. And nonetheless, document 105, likely fatal to plaintiff's suits, however, is that he has named the United States as a defendant, but the United States is immune from suit unless it has consented, which plaintiff does not allege. United States versus Teston, 424 U.S. 392 and 399 has 1976. Plaintiff also names the state of Illinois as a defendant, but it too enjoys sovereign immunity. So under most circumstances, Illinois cannot be sued either. See Alden versus Maine, 527 U.S. 706, 713. In light of these defects, plaintiff is ordered to show cause why this case should not be dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. Plaintiff's response should be filed on the docket no later than May 8th. So they're saying that in no way can they make a decision on anything in the court case that I filed. And they say that because the end result of it is that they do not or cannot make a decision based upon anything that is involved with university. So I'm saying to the court, you're trying to create a nuclear fire. Prove that it will not destroy the world. Prove that. And they say, no, that's not within our jurisdiction. The world has to die first. It's like saying, well, that's what they say. No, we can't stop them from killing you. We can't stop them from killing you. They are God. We cannot stop them from doing anything. And we cannot force the state of Illinois to actually, guarantee what they guaranteed in their Constitution. They cannot be forced to do anything. They are immune from anything called we the people. Immune. And that, of course, means that the Constitution has no bearing, has no value, has no anything. It is just a lie. That's what it is. It's just a lie. Because the university has taken over control of our government, our democracy, and declared that they are in charge. They are the ones that are in charge, and we're not basing it on every diploma. It's not true. We're basing it on the disguise of a diploma. The disguise that says we are the superior ones, like nobility says they are the superior ones. They get to make all the decisions. They are the expert. They're not the expert. They're just former classmates of yours and mine. And I never met a classmate that could be declared of as God. They're liars and cheaters and traitors and thieves and terrorists. And this is the first part, or the first filing, and then there are two more that will be discussed in the second part. So this is your decision. Is this, according to what the court declared, that we have no basis in law, we have no constitution to rule over our employees, we have no right of democracy, we have no law to protect us, we have no freedoms, we have no liberty, we have no value as we the people on earth. We have nothing. They took it all. We don't even have the money that you worked for. It's all counterfeit, and the future is all debt. Cannot be paid for because debts. Real money is either labor, which of course there's plenty of, and resources, which there is not plenty of. If there is no resource, there is no labor. How can you build something without nothing? We have to have resources, and of course if you If you align all the money with the resources that are left on the planet, it means that all the resources will be gone before the money is paid back. And that means you're a slave for the next 100 years or 1,000 years or whatever. You'll never pay it back. So, you need to go ahead and decide if you're going to let truth decide what is or is not real. And don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me. Don't believe me. Don't believe them either. Prove what is true. And what is true is that redress of grievances is the law of our nation. Redress of grievances is the law, constitutional law of our state of Illinois, and it has to be enforced by federal jurisdiction. That's just a fact of life. They are there to enforce the Constitution of our state on our employees of the state. That's their job. It's their jurisdiction. It's their job. They say we're immune. They say the state is immune. Can't be touched. They made a rule. They made a rule and destroyed the law that is our government. So, if you think that, that ain't right, if you think that our democracy means we the people, then you need to enforce redress of grievances. And that means that we put them on trial. This is the first step in that. This is the identity that we need to do something. This is the ability to unite as we the people and say, something is wrong, and we cannot let it go. We cannot just step aside and say, it doesn't concern me, because it does concern you, because the fact of the matter is, they're trying to bring the same fire here as is on the sun. A fire that has so much radiation that it would kill us without ozone. A fire that, we have overpopulation. We have jet planes that, I think it's 100 quadrillion BTUs of heat. But all you have to do is find out how many actual gallons of fuel are burned by the plane industry, and then calculate that into BTUs. You don't have to believe it. That every plane trip is 1 billion BTUs. Find out how much fuel is being used, and then calculate that into real world BTUs that are released. And then, of course, that's a big part of global warming, as is air conditioning, as is everything. Or the real world term is that with 9 billion people on Earth, all your choices for what you want is dead. Take a look. How many resources do 9 billion people need to survive? And then look into the future and say, there's no resources for that. We have to do something else. And we have to make decisions to do something else. Real world, real life, actual decisions that use a brain that you gave away to the cult called the University is God, who makes all the decisions for you. And they want to continue making decisions. They want to play God, and you let them play God. And that's how this whole nation became so corrupt, and organized crime controls everything, and so on. You are a failure as a nation. I can say you're a failure as a state too. You are a failure to your own democracy, because you let the insurgency of university, the claim of expertise, the decision of a few people who say they are God, take over your world. And you don't question them, because the media enforces the idea that if you're not got a university diploma, you don't know nothing. They enforce that with finding people who don't sound correct. And there are a lot of those too. But the end result is that we, the people, deserve our stay. We deserve our own decision. We deserve to decide what is or is not real. We deserve to decide if the risk to our planet, if the risk to our nature, if the risk to our water, if everything is actually being dissolved into disgrace or not. We are, a nation, a society united by the preamble of the Constitution in order to make a more perfect union. That's basically what it says, in order to make a more perfect union. Well, everything about the last 50 years has been dissolved into a less perfect union because the universities have been in control throughout that time. Now, it's not a Republican issue, it's not a Democratic issue, it's a university issue. The universities taught all of those people, all of them, everybody that's in charge, the universities taught. In other words, a few professors told them, mimic and memorize this, and then you get a diploma if you repeat it correctly. And so they all think the same way, and they all think the same things, and they all have the same people telling them that, that this is right or this is wrong, based upon what a few professors have told them. We need to take back our world. We need to take back our life, our living, our everything. And we have to stop the want in order to survive. It's 9 billion people. And of course, 50 years ago, it's 4 billion people. And the difference is absolutely massive. You can't do the same thing on a planet, on a finite planet with 9 billion people that you could do with 4 billion people. It won't work. Wake up. Time's running out. So this is the part 2 of the trial that's called USA Government on Trial, 2026. And that's case 226 CV 02110JEHRLH. It was filed April 4th, no, May 4th. So and this is the second filing, or a continuation of that trial, which says that we must have redress of grievances. It is the law. You must obey the law. You must enforce that law, which is redress of grievances, on the state of Illinois for our benefit as citizens of the state of Illinois and the state and then the nation itself. That's the law. You need to obey it. The judiciary said no. And so this is a trial to determine whether is this the nation that we paid for? Is this the nation that belongs to us? You know, do they owe us constitutional law? Do they owe us obedience to the government which we installed, which they are a part of, which they swore to obey? Is it their right to say no to constitutional law? And that law is indicated as redress of grievances, or a First Amendment law. It's not political, it's the law. And we need that because we are being threatened by university experimentation, which can easily turn into our own extinction. So we have to actually enforce our law. Whether you want to or not, doesn't matter. We need to enforce our law. And so this trial, this lawsuit begins with, does the Constitution rule this government or not? Does tyranny, I am the law, that's what the judiciary says. I made a rule to dispose of laws. That's what they applied for in their first statement back. And, you know, is this the government or do the universities rule our nation with ties to their superiority? They can play God and we can't say a thing about them. So the judiciary is sworn to uphold our Constitution, but will not answer, and will be held in contempt over our democracy. It is their job to uphold constitutional law, and that's just how it is. Avoidance is betrayal. So we need to prove that that is errant. They cannot just decide not to obey the law. And they need to provide a reason why they would not obey our law, which is redress of grievances. And this decision must be accompanied by a judicial signature as proof of their position. It says proof, you know, it goes on, or here we go with the lawsuit. To prove I failed the test of citizenship as guaranteed to each one. The law, the constitutional law is guaranteed to each one. That would be me included. Because I stand not as an individual, but as a state and nation demanding our laws as created by we the people for our own defense, who are guaranteed these legal rights of redress by our democracy. Apparent the entire nation needs to know, such as the judicial signature signifies what is their reason for not obeying the law. University science says we can ignite the same fire here as is on the sun, because their claim of fire with million-mile-long flames, that's what they claim, will just extinguish itself. Not enough gravity here to sustain the fire. That is their plan, their only plan, and it is a nuclear fire. Let's burn atoms for fuel, which does have some significant benefits, but if you can't control the fire, it's a forest fire 4 million times larger than that you have ignited, and it will turn our Earth into a sun. So in contrast to that, which does mean the sphere called the sun is being governed by thermodynamic laws, the result, like a candle, will suck up the fuel of those atoms into the fire by the effects of extreme radiation, which allows it to burn over time instead of burning out, as is the fuel is all gone now. It creates, that nuclear fire creates a nuclear vacuum, an actual vacuum sucking up what are rocks. It burns the atoms that hold rocks together. That's what it does. The difference between chemical and atomic energy release, science says, is 4 million times more here on Earth once that nuclear vacuum exists. There is no stopping the reaction. It demands the fire shall continue until the fuel called atoms has ended, or the planet explodes in a supernova event. So it is the pull of the neutron, opposite of dark energy, dividing the atom, that makes it possible, and that completes the evidence of our solar gravity. Shoot. Well, heat and its radiation is pushed out as a result of proton spin, the energy source of time. So that's where the actual energy of an atom is. It's in the proton spin, or the mass that's spinning inside the neutron, which protects it from any deviation in that spin. And of course, the electrons bleed off the energy of that spin, and that's what gives us time, or allows for time. So as they can prove me wrong, or prove their claim is not pure fantasy and delusions. It's called a belief. People believe. They believe. The cults are especially bad at that. They believe their leaders without a doubt. And of course, the university is a cult. It is a cult religion. And its primary focus is evolution. It says chaos built this world, so if we create chaos, we're just building life. That's their plan. But of course they're wrong. There's nothing about life on Earth, nothing about the Earth itself, that is not created by thought. Thought does it. Or if you look at it in a different way, what part of an automobile is just an accident, is just chaos? What part? What part of your house is just chaos or an accident? What part is it that builds something that you accept as a living thing? That is not thought. Thought has to design it, thought has to create it, thought has to build it. Thought does those things, along with truth and force and so on. So there is no room for compromise in this. They're trying to ignite atoms on fire. They're mutilating nature with chaos. We have to stop them. There is no compromise, or we end life on Earth forever by extinction, because that's the end result of what they're doing. So this involves you. It involves me, it involves us all. If they're wrong, they're gambling with our entire planet, and if they're wrong, we all get to die. That's not a game. That's not a choice that we made. That is a choice that they made. And so this lawsuit is about redefining their choice. Prove you can do what you say you can do. Prove that a million-mile-long fire will just extinguish itself. Prove it, or stop. So And they don't want to stop because they get a lot of money. Trillions of dollars has been spent for the claim of fusion, even though they know fusion is not a reality. But they get trillions of dollars. And they get to play games and say, we are the superior ones, we're going to save this world. But of course they're not. They're going to destroy the world. So anyway, the result of law is you will be on trial too. If you fail our Constitution, as is treason. You know, we can't just sit back in an easy chair and say, we don't want to be involved in this, no, no. You have to actually stand up for your nation, your world, your life, your future, your child, your everything. You actually have to stand up and say, we cannot let them be wrong. We cannot let these experiments that are going to wreck our world, wreck everything that we need to survive, completely destroy our planet. We cannot let these things be wrong. We have to at least have some evidence to show that they might be right. That's the point of the lawsuit. Prove you're not going to destroy life on Earth, because that is exactly what they're doing. And you say, well, the university is God. But the university is not God. The university is a blanket description, a blanket covering that says that, these former classmates of your own know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. And they are just former classmates of you. Whether they have a Nobel Prize or not, or whatever it is you describe as, this is special, doesn't matter. Because they're just former classmates of your own. That's all they are. Thank God, not by a long, 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 long way. So anyway, the judiciary has no control over our Constitution. That's in the Constitution. They make a decision based under the Constitution. We own the Constitution. We hire employees to change the Constitution for us, but if they don't do it right, we have redress of grievances to do it for ourselves. That's what redress means. We, the people, will decide now, after an investigation of what is true. You don't get to believe what you want to believe, as is the reality of 99.9999% of all humans. They just believe whatever they want to believe. You don't get to do that. You get to prove what is true by the evidence of our reality, evidence of our real world. You don't get to just say, well, we don't care. You better care, because it's extinction for our world if you don't. So we begin again with the convenience of an opinion is issued by the judiciary that this case has no subject matter jurisdiction, no coherent ability, no grasp on what is real. And of course they're wrong. We can go back to this, the nuclear vacuum is the reality of a nuclear fire, and that's 4 million times more than a chemical fire. Take a look at your forest fires, multiply that by 4 million times, and then that's what we're talking about. You are involved. And of course nature is being destroyed itself. So we have redress means the nation decides if we're going to let this continue. That's all it is. It's the nation decides. We get to the legal right to say no. And, that decides by our written law, governing laws, which prove that wrong is required change by us all. We have to protect ourselves. Our government has been completely overrun with the university diploma. They are an insurgency, an army of rebels forcing anarchy on us all, as is the cost of their being wrong. They are wrong. They're just nothing more than 2-year-olds who have an idea that you found a grain of sand, so I'm God, like 2-year-olds do. Nonetheless, as stated in Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution, each state must have full faith and credit to decide for itself based upon their own Constitution. You cannot decide for the state of Illinois, but the federal government can enforce the state will obey its constitutional guarantees to the people, as is their job. That's their job. So, in the claim of subject matter jurisdiction doesn't hold water. So the claim of judicial, they're just liars. Constitutional law is defined by Article 6. The Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges of every state shall be bound thereby, making the use of judicial silence or rules intended to overtake our government when confronted by constitutional law is an act of their own rebellion. That's the facts. They are rebelling against the Constitution by not letting the Constitution rule our government. It's the law that rules our government. It is our government. It is the law. They must obey the law, and they refuse to do so. And that means that we have to take them to court. We have to produce redress of grievances for ourselves. We have to create our own government and take it back. We cannot just let them have it. We cannot just let them continue to do whatever they want to do. They cannot continue to steal and rob us blind or, threaten us or anything. They have to obey the law. That's the purpose of this lawsuit. That's the purpose of redress. That's the purpose of what you're going to go to court for, or you're going to let this world die for. It's a choice. You get to make it one way or the other. You don't get to say, it's a lot of wrong. No. You have to make a choice. So anyway, constitutional, let's see, the question presented is redress the law of our government, the defender of our democracy, by letting us make our own decision based upon the evidence. Is that the proof of our ownership as a state or nation or not? Silence by the judiciary is anarchy, refusing to respond to constitutional law, refusing to admit that it is a part of a trial, is tyranny and treason. That's what the judiciary has done. It is when they decide that all they have to do is remain silent and never ever mention the Constitution at all, even though it is the basis of the trial. They don't have to mention it at all. It means that they can completely destroy the actual lawsuit by claiming it doesn't exist, by refusing to admit that it does exist. The foundation being that no employee was given the legal right to use our government or deny its protections for their own personal benefits, theft, or religion. Religion means that they believe. They believe. They don't have to question anything. They believe. But that creates illegal barriers to the court, and it's anarchy. It's anarchy to destroy the democracy of this United States, as is controlled, as is educated, as is defined by the university who teaches these things to the people who become our judiciary. They didn't go to some, redneck place to learn it. They went to the university to be taught. Don't you dare ever mention the Constitution unless it's something that you want to enforce. Don't mention it at all, because in that way we create rules to evict it from the courtroom. To claim we own it, they don't. And that, of course, is wrong. We own it, they don't. So, to void the law with silence. That is constitutionally verified redress denial. Our legal method, redress is our legal method of proving ownership as a democracy against this type of insurgency. A corruption of our total authority, that is, we the people are owners here. An organized crime against us. We have to demand how you control the nuclear let's burn atoms fire, just like the sun here on Earth. It is a legal right to know that. Same fire, same result. You ignite the same fire that's on the sun here, which burns atoms for fuel on a planet made out of fuel. What is the result of that? Shall we ignite gasoline and throw it into more gasoline and say, it'll just extinguish itself? No, it won't. So nobody is allowed inclusion in the judiciary to threaten my life or nature or rule without my true consent. They don't have the right. They don't have a legal right. They don't have any right at all to make a decision that allows the university to threaten my life or yours or our world or our nature or our future or anything else. They do not have that legal right. They are actually in violation of their job. That is treason, that is tyranny, that is everything vile and stupid and lifeless. It is, in fact, Satan on earth is what it actually is. Or if you like, it's the Antichrist, which means, that Jesus came to save the world, so religion says, but, these people are trying to destroy it. They are so certain they can be God on the university that they're willing to risk all our lives to play God. And of course, how can you play God more than to control the sun here on earth? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to prove they can be God. They're trying to prove that. And of course, we have to pay for that. Trillions and trillions of dollars, just like COVID. $60,000 per individual shot. That's what the first round was, and it didn't stop there. You want to know why you're broke as a nation? Because the university broke you. They stole all your money. They counterfeited all your numbers. They gave you lies and cheating and betrayal as your reward. And of course, it works fine as long as there are resources to use and to steal from the future and to steal from every child. But when the resources are gone, well, your numbers are worthless. And they're worthless before that too. But nonetheless. So, a nuclear fire means our world is incinerated if they're wrong. And the radiation they're going to release cannot be contained. It will actually evaporate life. Just one ignition and anything alive around it, even if it extinguished itself, the radiation would kill everything that surrounds it. And of course, the most likely target, the moment at least, is in Lawrence Livermore Laboratories in San Francisco. That means you're all dead. And that means a fire that continues draws its fuel from the Pacific Ocean. Gee, I wonder how fast it can grow. If the entire ocean, which is made out of atoms, is fuel for the fire, how fast would it grow? How fast would it eject the entire atmosphere of our world? You need to wake up, because, if you don't wake up, they're going to continue. The price for being wrong is our world is dead. So we have valid proof of legal jurisdiction. The court just, simply lied. They have jurisdiction to stop a war against us. This is a war against us. The university plays God. That is a war against us. They're not God. They're not, they've taken everything they could possibly take from us, except our lives. And that's exactly what they're trying to take now in our world and our future and everything else. So, they didn't have any right to deny that. But of course, I've been to court before, and they didn't have any right to deny that then either. So the nation and its future, and that refutes all legal complaint of a short and plain statement. The demand is stop them. That was the legal demand. Stop them, make them prove that they can control a nuclear fire. It starts there. And of course it extends to everything else that is wrong, or certainly at least a majority of things that we need to discuss, as is redress of grievances. And it is fully understood, we cannot wait and see. The judge doesn't believe. They just simply are cult worshippers. They know that they cannot, it's a cult. They cannot question the leader. The leader is God. They cannot question the leader. So therefore, they cannot, demand proof of any kind. They can't. They're a cult. The cult members are cult members of cult members. They brought the religion into our democracy that is, the universe is God. Well, they're not God. It's just a blanket covering to hide the fact that there are rats and serpents and mice and all kinds of critters and vermin and varmints and disease in our government. It's a disease factory. It's organized crime. It's everything vile and corrupt. It's collusion and conspiracy to deny democracy to us. It is everything horrible. So we get to say, we have redress of grievances. It's the law. You have to obey the law. We're going to make our own decision here. We're going to have an accounting. We're going to prove what is or is not true. And in particular, we're going to prove what is or is not true about igniting a nuclear fire, because we can't go back. You can say anything you want to about the money, because the money doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just numbers. But that ain't true about a nuclear fire. Can you just go out and put out a forest fire? No, you can't. 4 billion times more. Claimed by science to be a million miles long, when in fact it's when a solar flare has been measured at roughly 11-12 million miles long, which is the ejection of fuel that didn't burn in the fire. That would mean that the actual fire is probably 3 to 5 million miles long instead of just 1. So, it'll burn the moon too. And gravity will cause it to crash into the earth and all kinds of things. So we've got to demand proof, not their religious belief, evidence as best we can. Evidence without the taint of liars and traitors and failures and things. Nobody gets to hide. There's no such thing as hiding behind any kind of law. We want the truth. We want the evidence. We want reality. Nothing more or less. That is, redress is the legal method of deciding without war if our nation or state is under attack by our employees, or have they just plain lost their mind, because they certainly lost their mind. It's just a case of whether it's war or not. And of course it is war, because the end result is everybody dies. What's not war about that? Redress is our guarantee to ourselves. We hold the last say as the owners here, the final authority on what is true of the contract between ourselves and our society as a state or a nation. Our Constitution governs the society that we created. Our Constitution governs it. It's not an employee, and not any of them, not a president, not a Congress, none of them. It's none of that. The Constitution is our government, because it is the law by which everybody has to obey that law, and that's what makes us a nation or a society. We all agree that this law must be obeyed, and of course none of them obey it. Who obeys it? Trump went into war, but he did not have the opportunity. He had the opportunity, but he did not have the authority to take the military and go create a war. It was his lie that did that. But that's only just a tiny little bit of the problem. Just a tiny little bit of the problem. So democracy enforced is redress of grievances. That's our legal authority as owners to say, we will decide for ourselves now. That's what redress means. The threshold being redress is First Amendment, law of our nation. It is the law, just like you cannot, freedom of speech, freedom of press, and so on. Same thing. So it is the law of the state of Illinois as well. They're both laws. It's the 5th article of the state of Illinois Constitution, that we have redress of grievances. You can't find it in the law anywhere because it's not used, it's not allowed. The judiciary means silent and creates rules that say you can't come here with that. We are immune from that. But there is no such thing as immunity from we the people. It is our government. It is not their government. And there is no immunity from our government. No immunity from our Constitution. No, when we say it is a constitutional question, they must reply. They must. It's their job. That's what they're hired to do. That's what they swore to obey. It is their job. So we have to take control as a nation to defend ourselves, because they're not going to do it for us. They are completely the opposite of protecting or defending us. They are completely the opposite of that. They are the enemy. They have proven to be the enemy, with threats of extinction all around us. It's a fact. There are threats of extinction in 100 different ways all around us because of what they chose for us. And they chose to give you what you wanted. It's not just, university diploma decides. It is you wanted what you wanted too. Greed and selfishness controlled your lives just as much as it controlled them. You want to play God just as much as they want to play God. But, they're the organized crime that happens to be in power right now, so, they get to blame. But it's a common human problem. You want to play God. You want what you want, and that's all that you want. You don't want nothing else, and you want to be rich, and just make me rich. Well, the end result of that is what it is today. Not a single thing was done for life or world or infrastructure or anything. It's just all greed. And of course, the university stole everything they could possibly steal, counterfeited everything they could possibly counterfeit. It created debts, mountains of debt that can be paid, and have said, well, doggone it, we didn't die yet, so now we have to pay. It's like, the people who say, well, you're going to die, and so they take a credit card and they max it out and say, oh no, I didn't die. But the same thing here is true. And we have to decide whether we're going to save this earth, we're going to save life and earth, or not. Because it's going to die based upon what you have already chosen. We have to choose. No further threshold exists, and law decides. Law decides. So if we make the law and enforce the law, then we decide what the nation, what the society, what our world is going to be. All right, well, anyway, this case is about, or before the people shall decide if it's a treason or not. As is this their job sworn to obey constitutional law, or is it not? Do we own the right to redress, or do we not? And redress means we the people will decide now. We are the owners. We will decide now. That's what redress means. The employees of our constitution, their claim of government is not. We are the owners. Simple as that. The Constitution is sovereign over nation and state. It is a contractual guarantee to each citizen. This shall be our government, and this is not for any employee to decide. They're immune from that. We are the owners here. You are not immune from that, as is your oath of office proves true. You swore to obey the Constitution. If you don't obey the Constitution, that means that you are on trial for your failure to obey. That's what that means. Not immune, on trial. And that's what redress is for, to decide whether or not our employees, in fact, have disobeyed us. Is an insurgency against us? Is a rebellion against us? Is anarchy against us? We need to decide that. And we decide that by looking for the evidence, proving the evidence, calling for those who must appear in a courtroom and give us the evidence as best they can, and liars be thrown into prison, which is where they belong. So we the people hold the Constitution is our government. We'll decide what is sovereign here for ourselves. What cannot be, which cannot be the Constitution in this democracy that is errant and wrong. The Constitution is our government. There is no immunity to that. The Constitution is our government. They, our employees, are a part of our society. They're not government. They are part of our society. It is their job to obey the law. That's their job. That's what they are hired to do. It is not a choice. And there is no immunity for any of them. Not under constitutional questions, there's not. Therefore, the jurisdiction is to enforce our constitutional law, as is redress, mandatory by oath for both state and nation. It is mandatory. It's not a choice, it's mandatory. Prove it is not so. The laws of our government in this society grants to no one to be king, and requires the law and your employment belongs only to ourselves. This shall be so by your oath. You are saying that your claim to get the job is that you swore to obey the Constitution itself. And when you fail to obey the Constitution, you have broken your oath, and now you are, punishment is now due. And that means we get to decide, not you. You broke the, you can't rule over yourselves. That doesn't work. You can't judge yourself. That doesn't work. We are the judge over the judge. We are the owners. We are the government by constitutional law and under constitutional protection and within constitutional limits and boundaries. You don't get to believe whatever you want to believe. You get to choose. This is the Constitution. This is what it says. This is the law. You have to obey it, just like me. So anyway, we have signed proof of evidence. No claims of any religious belief are allowed for redress court, and every employee of our government is sanctioned to obey the law and give us what we need in order to make that decision true. You're employed, the judiciary is employed to operate the business of government. That's the job under the Constitution. You're granted that position only when swearing to uphold the Constitution as written. No authority is given for immunity by creating rules to overwrite the law of our Constitution from any employee, including the judiciary. That is just treason. We the people exist as owners here, which means we decide by our Constitution, as is the government of this United States. No exemption exists to claim employees are superior to that law. No rule exists to overturn our democracy. By your rule, the law of our government decides as written. You can't make, you can't say this is a court case and that grants us immunity. That's just a court case. That means absolutely nothing here under constitutional law. Nothing. Means nothing. Therefore, the burden of proof is in your hands, because denial of our constitutional mandates, the guarantees we have given to ourselves, are not granted by law to the judiciary, which are then a criminal action if you fail to, a cause for trial by treason against you. Which means that, we are now in a position to hold the judge in contempt of the law, the judge that made this decision, by treason, if we want to do that. But it's not necessarily the judge, because this is systemic throughout the entire judiciary system. And I've been through every court in the state and nation to prove that it is so. It's a very, very deep set. Been there a long time. The university controls everything. Form of insanity, which is, the university is in control. The university cannot be questioned. The university is God. And so, while that is actually true, the university is everything. Get a diploma and then you can be part of the government. I have only one objective to this lawsuit, and that's to inform the public that there is no coming back to life on Earth if their experiments go wrong. If you let them ignite a nuclear fire, on a planet that is made out of fuel, the same fire equals the same result as is on the sun. Now you can say, well, he is stupid, he is this or he is that, or he's too ugly, he's whatever it is that you think. Doesn't matter to me at all. It doesn't matter. I don't give a damn. Who cares what you think, what you believe? I don't care what you believe. But I do care about what is true. And a nuclear fire is a fire. It's not an explosion. It's not an atomic bomb. It's a fire. A fire that is 4 million times more than a chemical fire. So a candle flame instantly becomes 62 miles high. How are you going to control that? When a candle flame becomes 62 miles high, when it changes from a chemical fire to an atomic fire. How are you going to control that? They can't control that. They want to play God. They want to prove they can play God by playing with the sun. They're insane. They're beyond insane. They are, Satan worshippers, for lack of a better description. They believe they can be God. They believe that. And we need to tell them no. consequently no desire to exist to fight for who is right. I don't care. I don't care. Who cares? I don't care if they're right or not. What we're discussing is the risk to life on Earth, and whether the risk is worth letting them continue. That would be the risk to all of nature, the risk to this, the risk to that. You can't just go and spend every part. You can't steal my entire world and say, you have a legal right. You can't intervene with me. You can't stop me. Yes, I can, or the law can. I cannot actually do it on my own. I could go and kill how many people could you kill? You could kill quite a few if you wanted to. But what good would it do? It would be like trying to destroy the power station. It doesn't matter. They'll rebuild it. This has to be done as we the people, not me or you. It has to be done as legally as possible, so that the law governs us all, so that the law does not destroy us. Because if you do it the wrong way, you will destroy us. The wrong people decide, we're going to kill them. But that just means that they're going to kill you back and so on. Nonetheless, we the people deserve our choice. We deserve to decide whether or not, regardless of your belief, whether the university can be wrong. So the question is, do you think the university can be wrong? Do you? Yeah, careful. All right. So, ignition decides for every life on Earth forever. That's what it does. Ignition of a nuclear fire decides permanently for every life, every future life, everything about the planet, everything about the world, everything about our future. It decides in one instant. 1 second too late, and your choice is over. Your choice does not exist anymore. And the same is true for chaos in nature. 1 second too late, your choice doesn't exist anymore. You don't have a choice. There is no going back. There is no put it back together the way it was. None of that. And the university can always be wrong, and usually is. 98% of everything the university done throughout the last 50 years is wrong. 98% of it. Wrong. I am not a lawyer, and you will not provide the court will have to provide the legal support required by our society, but it will be under my direction, not yours. So that is a personal element of what confronts the law of our Constitution shall be obeyed, because it is our life and our death of our planet. You can, do it for yourself if you want to, but I'm acquainted with the case, and it would be best if you just, let me do it. Confronting government, university, etc., employees is your job in open court before the nation. My job is to ensure that they do not fail, and that requires some will be fired. If they give me lawyers who are supposed to protect you, and they fail, they have to be fired. Or you will prove me wrong in a signed affidavit which will be appealed, because we cannot be wrong or our world dies. Think about that for a minute. This is a lawsuit that decides whether or not your life and your world and your future will die or not. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, the greatest mind in the entire planet or universe or whatever you think it is, or the most beautiful queen of whatever, or a poor man on the street and is starving to death. It doesn't matter. We are all involved. Every single one of us. It doesn't matter who you are. You're involved. Big sports star, who cares? You are involved. Because a nuclear fire, just like is on the sun, one-time ignition is all you get. Because either the fire can be controlled by, it just extinguishes itself, as is the university claim. And of course they make that claim because then they don't have to do anything. They don't have to, know anything. They don't have to be anything. It'll just extinguish itself. But of course, wrong is wrong is wrong. And as always, they're wrong. We have to remind the judiciary that they are not government. Our Constitution is. And for that matter, every single damn employee in the entire nation or state of Illinois. Everybody, if you took an oath, you're an ass. So anyway, we have grounds in this USA Citizens State of Illinois, and its Article 5 guaranteeing redress of grievances in the State of Illinois Constitution means that our judiciary in federal court has to enforce that law. That's what that means. The Constitution of a state it must be obeyed. That's their jurisdiction. That must be obeyed. They are the only ones who can enforce that part. That must be obeyed. That is subject matter in the courtroom. They must accept, and they refuse because they don't want to do it. Because the university judiciary is trained in the university not to obey our law. That's what they're doing. Not to obey our law. To remove democracy so they can be king and queen and the superior ones who make all the decisions for us because, they're great. Aren't they great? They're the people who are trying to ignite nuclear fire. They're great. They're God. Well, no, they're not. Well, anyway, every citizen is entitled to demand redress. It's the constitutional law. Doesn't mean you get to complain about redress for little things. You don't. That's not what it's for. You got to have sufficient proof of cause to exist, and I have clearly proven the reality of evidence that absolutely states our world, our state, our nation is being threatened with experimentation by those who are in charge of the university of such extreme nature that we can all be incinerated as a world, every single living thing, if these people attempting to be these experiments are proven to be wrong. There's no going back. Cognizable legal rights as part of so are guaranteed by Constitution of the democracy. It is we the people are owners here. The legal remedy for our complaint, for our nation, to protect and defend ourselves is redress of grievances, as we will decide for ourselves by our vote. We the people decide if these experiments shall be continued here or not, with our lives and our world at the cost of being wrong, lost, extinct. It is not up to the judiciary in any capacity to complain. They know, you do not. It is not up to them to, evacuate the university and say, there's nobody here. Nobody. You cannot ask anybody to come and explain what they're doing. There's nobody here. They're God. They're just vanished. We don't have to put up with them because they're above us. Well, they're not. And they're about to make us extinct, whether you believe it or not, in all kinds of ways. Threats all around. Consequently, the decision required is to prove by the law of evidence in a court so that we can all say this is the best we did do, this is the best we can do. We need that law to protect and defend ourselves from a nation given over to the universities to decide for us all, as is communism. Fatal flaw being flaunted as a claim of their immunity. The Constitution has consented for you. It is not your employee right to judge against our government. The elemental description of it is a preamble addressing our intent by this contract, which is the Constitution between the people themselves, as is this who we are intended to be as a nation called the United States. We are entitled to relief as employees who have no say in the freedom to demand proof of evidence. You cannot be wrong. We are entitled to that relief. We are legally bound by our own duty to protect and defend this nation, to demand that relief, that is, redress of grievances. Everything that belongs to this nation and this world, and to you and to me, is subject to the death of what they do. Nature, future, life, world. No superiority exists, certainly not in the university. No expertise exists regarding the sun. only theories and fantasy. They can't see through a 1,000,000-mile long plane, can they? They cannot. They can't. So they're no more educated about the sun than I am. And in fact, they're far less. But the delusions claim they can be, that they don't need to be any more right than what they are. They believe whatever they want to believe. And that's just how that is. So again, the demand of life on this earth is to prove you can't control the same fire as is ignited on the sun. Prove you can ignite it here. You know, if you ignite it here, that it won't burn us all. Prove it. Prove it. Prove the evidence is real. Prove it. Prove it. Don't let them be on anything else. I'm not a believer in the university, and I'm not a believer at all in their religion of evolution or its beliefs, or is not a participating in this nation or in this government. Your beliefs don't belong here. Religion doesn't belong here. And the university is a religion. It is in fact a cult religion, because the leaders cannot be questioned. The leaders cannot be questioned. So says the court, so says the government, so says everybody, you know, because they are all the university. And you only get a diploma if you memorize and mimic what you are told to obey. They are the people who are, made the cult, and they are the people who enslave the people with debts that they can't pay, and so on. The coherent demand is prove what is true. Because wrong means the earth becomes a sun. We can't wait for them to prove that it will become a sun. That's just, beyond insanity. Or you can prove that my words are false. Present your evidence to the nation and the world. But of course they don't do that. They never do that. They don't. It's just a case of, they say, you can't come here, this is incoherent and frivolous. We won't let you in the door. So here I am saying to you that you have to open the door. You have to demand redress. You have to choose to defend and protect your lives, your world, your nature, your future, your everything. You have to do that. Because I cannot. I lock the door to the law. And it is the law that decides if they get to go on or not. So, they swore to obey. We will decide whether they are wrong or right. Is this obedience to our constitutional law to deny that redress exists? That's what they did do. They denied that redress exists. And it is not their right to do that. Is it? Is it? It's not their right to do that. The Constitution is the law. The Constitution is the foundation of our government. And they are not. They are employees. And damn poor employees. They are actually organized crime, stealing everything they can possibly steal, and destroying everything they can possibly destroy, and completely discarding the infrastructure and the future in the trash can. So we need to decide who is the owner here. Are we owners or are we not? Are we owners or are we not? Because if we can let them continue to walk all over us, we are not the owners here. We are the slaves. They didn't pay us. They paid us with counterfeit money. They created debts to pay us that we have to pay. There is no, it is traitors. It is an insurgency against us. So each of those elements are recognized ground for a court's jurisdiction and designs for a legal remedy are sought. These things cannot go wrong, but of course, when corruption is throughout the judiciary and throughout the government, throughout every part and every piece of the conspiracy and the collusion against us, to deny to us our own democracy, to remove our government from us, to declare that they are God and we are, just plain slaves and so on, we need to correct that. The assertion of university recognizes that all those claim the work can be hidden by other names, as is such believe they can escape the authority as a nation to say no. And they can just delay and delay and delay and delay in whatever they want to do to say no. Think about that. So we have each of the foundations of trial are beyond the judiciary as they contended to be. That is, the constitutional law has to be obeyed. It is not subject to their individual discretion, which they state clearly, but of course it is. The Constitution is our government. They swore to obey it, and they refuse. According to Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, as governed by Section 2.1, all the judiciary is under the Constitution. It's not above it. In other words, they have no control over the Constitution itself. They're actually not interpreters. They interpret for us if we allow them to do that, but our interpretation of the Constitution is what makes it correct, or is what makes it our government, or is it what makes our legal authority to declare us as owners. We the people. Doesn't mean them the employees. That's not what it means. We the people are owners here. And it does not exist as any claim in law that any employee can claim immunity from the constitutional consequences of not obeying their oath. And that does not exist in law. It's a form of traitor or betrayal. Any further assertion of immunity is regarded as anarchy, because they are not intended to destroy the Constitution itself, which is what they do. If they don't obey the law, if they don't obey the Constitution, if they do not accept the limits and laws of what we created for ourselves, that is anarchy. Because you're intended to destroy the Constitution itself, and that is a rebellion against our democracy, both state and nation. The rule does not control constitutional law. The law controls every rule. They can't point to some kind of state, court case and say, that makes us immune from our decisions. It does not. It does not. There are no exceptions other than betrayal. We don't get to, minute every detail, claim everything. Only what is truly important to our nation or our state is subject to redress. And of course, nothing is more important than the fact that we could die from what our new university does. And they say, we are the university. We can experiment however we want. That's how we learn. That's how we do. That's how we give you whatever you want because we get to experiment. That's what we do. But they cannot experiment with things that can destroy us all. There is no expertise there. There is no claim of being anything other than Satan there. They are not allowed to do that. They have no legal right. And we do have every legal right to say, no, you can't. Of course, they say they're God, which means you can't stop us, you can't. But the law says we can. And as to relief, their claim of superiority to any and all demands for evidence to prove the risks being taken with our world, our money, our nature, ourselves, our future, our oceans, everything devised by university as a disgrace to us, claiming to be gods, and they claim we don't have to justify anything, is false. They do have to justify everything. They are being paid by us. They're being allowed to do this or that by us, and if we refuse their right to do that, then they have no right. We are the government. We are the law of this society. We know what we are willing to risk or not. The claim of superiority and its assertion of expertise is not justified by law. Critical evidence of proof must exist. In other words, if we demand proof that you can control a nuclear fire, you are in violation of the law. That is, we are the owners here. Your employee cannot completely burn down your building, can he? Your employee cannot, just murder you, can he? Or she? That's not real. We own the right to say, prove what you are doing will not risk our lives. And they refuse, or the judiciary refuses for them, because the judiciary is merely one of their forms of propaganda, like media. If the universe says, we're God, The universe, the judiciary, the government, the media, they all say, they're gone. Believe them, believe, just like COVID. Believe. Don't ask for no damn proof. Believe, as religions do. But the end result of it, of course, is that you have passed the line in the sand that says, this is realistic, you can actually do this because, perhaps you can make a difference for our lives. And the line that says, if you're wrong, we all die. We have a right to say, no, you can't go past that line. And that's exactly what they've done. So we are demanding how you control a nuclear fire, as is the purpose, primary subject of this lawsuit called redress. Redress. We decide now, not you. For the people, as is our contractual government by constitutional degree. The Constitution is our contract between each other to unify as a nation. It's a contract. It says this is what you will do, and this is what we will do, and so on. We get to judge for ourselves if this is within the boundaries of that constitutional contract. And if those claiming the university will bring the same fire here as is on the sun can be wrong, then the cost of all of us, both life and world, we are absolutely entitled to know. As citizens, state, nation, or world, how will you control that fire? Once it is ignited, we can't go back. The sun is our proof and presents irrefutable evidence of cause. That this is no game. The judiciary is not entitled to claim we believe the university. They are not entitled to do that. They are judge, not jury. We are the jury, and we are going to be the judge in a redress trial. And they're, moot, whatever they say doesn't matter, because we have every legal right to demand the evidence. And the people entitled to address the failure of our government and decide upon its changes is for ourselves is an example of that, as is the purpose of democracy. We, the people, shall rule ourselves. By law, not leaders. By law, not leaders. That's a very important fact of life. If we make the law and make our employees swear to obey the law that we made, then they do not. Then they are not leaders. Trump thinks he's a leader. He is not a leader. He is an employee. And if you go beyond the limits and the boundaries of the Constitution, then you become a criminal. It's just like an employee who steals the money. All the money is stolen by university. It's all stolen by university. They trashed it all, gave it away, and what have you. It didn't matter. All gone. So, and the president doesn't have a right to use military for anything he wants. What is unclear about that? So it's a criminal assault of teaching a religion called evolution throughout the educational system. They don't have any right to do that either. They don't have any right to teach evolution. It's not a proven thing. They have no proof of any kind other than this looks like that. This looks like that. Well, so what? I look like the next person. That doesn't mean it's the same. So what? So what? It's a religion. They have no proof of evidence. And that makes it a religion. They simply believe. As is the propaganda media. The constant delusion that, it's evolution, it's evolution, it's evolution. It's not. Or as with COVID, an unproven pandemic. It was not a pandemic. It was never a pandemic. It was probably meant to be a pandemic, but it got out a little too soon. And they didn't have a vaccine ready. They sold you what they had. They sold you an experiment on your natural life, on your genetics. How much damage could they do? So the criminal assault of counterfeiting our currency and creating debts we cannot pay, using media to insist inflation isn't real. Inflation is just what you pay for groceries. That's all it is. Inflation, that's all it is. But inflation is not that. That's not inflation. How much they increase the currency, the number of dollars that are in play at any given time, that is inflation. And of course, as I stated before, they are now at over $700 trillion of currency. That's $2 million divided equally apiece, babies and all. $2 million in play at this time. That's inflation, and that's what's causing your price of everything to go up. They stole it to give it to themselves. They didn't steal it to, make the life of anything better. They stole it to play the game of playing God. To play the game that, we get to experiment with anything we want. Anything. Anything. Doesn't matter. Anything. And all the money is gone. So, but that's just a reality of securities, and it's not nearly the same as trying to ignite the entire planet in a flame like the sun. So we have a criminal assault and a reality ending the free press by ownership of basically all media by a very tiny few who are called the powerful shall decide. They control the editor who controls whatever is told on media. And that is betrayal. It's a further attack on the First Amendment, along with evolution. They have no proof. It's religion. Along with redress refused with silence. Along with speech was defeated with COVID. Only the universities decide. You didn't have any say in that. They decided. And from that decision, you had to obey. You had to obey. Or be thrown out of Nazi enemies standing at every door to everything that you needed to survive. Nazis. Well, I have the power now. I have the weapon. We're going to cheat and steal from you. Nazis. But that's what a university is. It's just a cult that turns Nazi. So the criminal assault, you may or not allow the Fourth Amendment to be vanquished from real world existence. Nothing is more personal than my face to me. Nothing is more personal than that. So as a security to use my work as a payment by stealing the currency itself with debt or inflation making me a slave, or nothing is more blatant of tyranny than claiming everyone as a suspected terrorist. Therefore you have to have endless information, just like the Nazis. Where are your papers? Gathered for each and every one. You have no legal right to use the government in any method or way that you are doing. It's not democracy enforced. It's not Amendment 9 either. The criminal assault of terrorists is further taxation by disguise. It's without representation. We pay the result. We pay the result. That's a tax. We pay the result. Which is a denial of constitutional mandate, as is Article 1, Section 7, all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. And that is raising revenue, unless it goes entirely to recreate the businesses that they sold away from us. So, we have a criminal assault, which is denial of Section 3, which is all judges shall hold their office during good behavior, which has nothing to do with lifetime appointments or realities of bad behavior in the judiciary, which are plenty, or the silence over constitutional law so as to defeat it without trial or oversight by the public. Criminal assault by allowing extreme experimentation, claiming university expertise decides to gamble with all life and world. Gambling with all life and this entire world. All of nature, everything, poison, water, everything. Everything is at risk. We're 9 billion people. We can't afford risks. Not your job to decide they can gamble with our world, or your decision alone. It is not your right. By vote, because we all pay the price for being wrong. We get to decide. We get to decide. A short and plain statement, the court exists in its entirety to serve the public with justified authority over any and all inherent risks to our or threats to our existence. That is exactly what this trial is about. And since they won't do it, we have to do it for ourselves, and that requires redress. to prove in a court of law as best we can. This is the best of the evidence that we can produce. Therefore, we can make a vote, and therefore we know that this is the best that we can do. And we can force people to provide that evidence. Therefore, the proof required by demanding how you control this file is absolute. It's absolute. They have to respond, and cannot be deterred by cult worshippers. You know, the people who want to believe that the university cannot be wrong, but they are wrong, and we're not even arguing that. I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying prove you can control a nuclear fire. Prove that beyond a questionable doubt. And they refuse to do that. The court is ordered to show cause how they know that the experiments which gamble with world and life cannot be wrong, or how the universities can prove they cannot be wrong. And that's with nature and everything else. Thereby making us pay as a world if they fail. That's what the price of being wrong is. We all, as a world, have to pay. Reality, however, knows that the judiciary is not entitled to declare themselves as experts here. And they must call in witness those who claim they can. In redress trial, we can't actually legally do that for ourselves. Therefore, we have to have the court to do redress trial. It is important to us to get as much and as real of evidence as we possibly can, and to punish those who lie to us in redress trial before a station or nation and state. Because as the citizens representing we the people, we are confronting terrorism in this USA, the plot and planning to control and deter the legal right to redress of grievances. That is a traitorous act. That is terrorism in the USA itself. Whereas, nuclear fire and crimes against nature are world terrorism. Our power of the people is by the law of democracy to rule over, to protect ourselves, which means we the people will decide for ourselves. That requires redress. It is the law. Obey the law. Let us do our job. It is our job to protect this nation when the stupid and the insane don't. So the insane shall gamble all life on earth, shall be allowed to ignite a nuclear fire, which could be considered an atomic bomb that will not stop, just like the sun here. 130 major fusion called experiments. Trillions have been spent for that. The evidence of threat sunfire, as is established by the sun, cannot be undone. You can't just wish it away. Or go back in time and say, we don't want it. It won't work. Because it burns atoms, and as we know must be true, it breaks apart and vacuums up the rocks to burn. And a sun tornado is the evidence of that. If you can't understand it otherwise, prove truth. How will the fire be controlled? It creates a nuclear vacuum. A vacuum that is 4 million times more than what we could find here on Earth. 4 million times more, which is solar gravity in itself. That's how planets, that's how solar systems exist, because of nuclear vacuum. So that requires evidence of real-world truths, not theories or beliefs, which would include the basic elements of this third filing as well, which discovers the failure of governments, universities, and more. The demand is you approve the evidence presented or is wrong and let the people decide for themselves. No going back, once and done. Just one time, one vote, all done. Redress means we the people will decide for ourselves by our vote as owners. You win or you lose, there's no in-between. No claim of frivolous is allowed. Your decision is, does redress exist as a law of our nation and this state of Illinois? And that does mean an accounting with as much expertise as is required is a mandatory example of how we the people will decide now. You can't believe whatever you want to believe. You have to prove it with the evidence. As is the democracy enforced, because if you're wrong, either the Constitution or you is not valid as a guarantee of our democracy. Redress is the guarantee of our democracy, and you are its employee. We're talking to the judge. Avoidance or its silence is not authorized by law. No judge can do that. It's a constitutional question. It has to be answered. That's the law. So the judge is employed to answer the citizens with law, not assumptions or beliefs, or assuming that the university can't be questioned, or that there's some kind of secret disguise based on this. It just doesn't exist. And in actual fact, lots of things need to be taken apart and thrown away. So this is life or death over a world, regardless of your own personal beliefs. Even you can understand a nuclear fire burns atoms. Even you can look at the sun and say, do we want that here? Because if they're wrong, we can't get rid of that. We can't go back in time. This is a life or death for our world decision. And that is not for you or any judge or any nation or even human race to decide, but we're going to have to decide it anyway. It's not for former classmates who have a diploma and now blanket themselves with university. It's not that. They cannot claim themselves to be God. They're not God. Our decision as a nation exists without doubt. You cannot be wrong or refusal to pay, which means we all burn, the atmosphere is ejected, the moon will ignite and crash into the earth, the planet will explode because of the cavities and crevices it contains, changing our solar system. You'll be dead, or you'll be in Hades. But nonetheless, going to change the whole solar system with this. This is a big, big, big decision. This is not a little thing. This is not university decides for itself. This is none of that. This is the reality of our lives. A complete insanity of university gone enormously stupid. Enormously stupid. Enormously stupid. I can't even comprehend how stupid they are. Stupid. Without a brain. And the end result of that is that the tiny few who actually control the university, playing God with them all, have got to be given themselves over to Satan, which is destroyer of a world. You can call it anything you want to, but the end result is destroyer of all the world. Destroyer of every life. How is that not hate in charge of life on earth? That is exactly what that is. So you need to review that. You need to get out of your damn, get out of the septic tank, fight your way to the surface of some sort of form of actual humanity, and make a decision for life. Not university is God. Make a decision for life. Find your brain back. Anyway, the elemental review of our reality is the cost of being wrong is the end of life on earth. That expands and established in the construction of disciplines in the third filing here. And I remind the court that a binary sun system, which means that there is found in the solar system, in the universe, suns that are too close together to actually be functional for any length of time. They're going to clash, they're going to crash into each other, because that's how it is. And that's probably a planet that was turned into a sun just like this one is. And which means that there's life on a different planet. There used to be life on a different planet. And we're facing the same conclusions that they did. To your shame. The claim of tyranny is the law is our power. Well, it's not. The claim of democracy is the law is our power as we the people. Therefore, the power of law will govern constitutional authority or its silence or its evidence of war. They are declaring war against us. You can't destroy all of nature. You can't destroy all of everything we need to survive. You can't, ignite the planet on fire without declaring war on us. It's hate. It's a conspiracy to rebel against our democracy. It's corruption, which is an insurgency against our society. It is collusion by anarchists in charge of this democracy and this nation. Each act of defiance represents a cause for redress. That is the subject matter, and the court says no, because they don't want to address it. They don't want the powerful who pay them to be upset with them and cause them problems. So they say no. And that means that we cannot have the judiciary controlled by any form of the so-called government employees. We have to separate them, and we have to pay attention to them. Silence before a demand for constitutional law establishes the desertion of duty. The resultant act establishes military law as a mediator of consequences. The critical definition is the judiciary is divided into two distinct categories: mediating the people or defending the nation by law. The refusal of law, defying constitutional intent, constructs a battleground and illustrates an enemy of our government employees. Amendment 14 solidifies that judgment with no state or judge shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of this United States. They have clearly done that by destroying the constitutional demand that redress is the law. Nor shall any state judge deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. Redress is the law, and no greater cause has ever existed. And if we look into the past, we can easily find they did all of that. Defying constitutional intent, our government has been invaded by an insurgency enforced through university leads. That represents an actual act of war. We didn't vote for them to make our decision. Religious belief in universities is not warranted, as with COVID. They just believed. They believed. What we know is that COVID wasn't a decision by we the people at all. It was a decision by those who wanted us to believe that they were God. It was after a year's worth of self-hypnosis or intentional mass hypnosis. In other words, if you all believe the same thing, then suddenly it becomes true. And of course, repeat for a year by the media, 24 hours a day, is what made it believable. And of course, once you have it believable, then you have believers and you have zealots who push and push and push, and who ridicule the others for not believing as they believe, which is, of course, the basis of religion anyway. But anyway, that is not democracy. We have to decide for ourselves. That's what democracy means. We decide for ourselves. You present the evidence to us. We do the best we can to decide what is true, what is not true, and then we decide for ourselves. No, we didn't hire you to make decisions for us. No, we didn't hire you to unleash Nazi SS on us to control things that we need to survive. We didn't, and none of it. None of it. It was all a complete lie of democracy. It was a complete fraud of what democracy means. It was a complete rebellion against what democracy is. They decided, they assumed that the university was right, and they wanted to believe the university is right. And as cult worshippers everywhere, you can't question the leader, and the leader cannot question their God, which is the university. So so they're God. They get to decide. But that just isn't so. But then their experiments injecting chaos into nature is the same basic thing. Experiments to poison the earth or believe global warming is just a game of fools. That's all, part of it too. You can hire any expert you want. It doesn't matter. The atmosphere is pink. It's not blue. It's pink. It's pink. I'm sure you can find an expert that says it's pink. Believe, believe, believe. But of course it doesn't make it true either. But people believe what they want to believe, and they believe according to what fear allows them to believe, and that means that, you can believe anything you want. All you have to do is believe. And to believe, all you have to do is believe anything you want. And whatever you want is then whatever is true. So belief doesn't really work. Belief is a tragedy, a step off the edge, a descent into the chaos of what you don't know is true. Truth is a very important fact of life, or an important fact of the universe. What is true governs what is real. What is true governs the laws that come from it. What is true in you governs you. And it will govern your eternity as well. Because there's no other thing beyond. Truth decides. Beyond. Truth is what it is. It is what it is. And you cannot erase it. Once you have produced a decision that is evidence for or against you, you can't erase that. And neither can anyone else. That makes truth your judge. So anyway, we have the future of all life on earth to decide. Will you let it be extinct, or will you stop the universities from being a cult that just simply makes us extinct? Religious worship at universities is in fact, demanding having you believe, rather than proof of anything real as the evidence grants. By cause to accept what is true. Evidence will prove what is true, but the evidence must be untainted. There's all kinds of things that were presented as COVID evidence which were untrue. And I looked. Nonetheless, within those words, democracy has failed. Given away to universities to be our government, to be the experts who decide everything. As with COVID, the expert decided everything. And what they actually decided was they wanted trillions of dollars. And what they actually decided was they wanted complete freedom to do any experiment they wanted. Before COVID was created, they had some limits to what they could do to experiment with life. After COVID was created, there was no limits to what they could do. They're God. Deal with it. But that just ain't that's not our democracy. It's 1,000 more realities of religious beliefs claimed by university expertise. Fusion is just one of them. You're going to combine 2 hydrogen atoms into a helium atom. They did that, or they tried to do that at Lawrence Livermore Labs in San Francisco and could not do it. But they would not admit to that fact. They wanted the money. And of course, they've gotten trillions of dollars for that. Trillions of dollars for experiments to produce fusion. Even though they've proven themselves it can't be done. But who turns down trillions of dollars? Do you turn down trillions of dollars? No. They want to be, considered to be the saviors of the world. But they are the enemy of the world. Redress seeks to change what must be changed by the evidence of truth. You don't get to believe, you don't get to say, they're wrong. They're wrong, but you don't get to say that. We're going to take the evidence and prove what is true. And the thing that we need to prove is whether or not, if they actually create a nuclear fire, can it be controlled? That's what the question of this is. Can it be controlled beyond the idea that, gravity will just extinguish the fire? That's just not real. It won't. They don't even know what gravity is. Redress, which means we the people decide now, our government, our choice within constitutional guidelines, not your religious worship. You can't claim that the cult knows what it knows. The cult doesn't know what it knows. It believes what it believes. And there's a really big difference. Belief is not enough. Prove your truth. Our duty is to defend our government from all attackers, from those inside our government as well. That's what redress is for. Our duty to demand that we are the owners here. And what we know is that the employees of this government called the USA are cult worshippers who have formed an alliance of religious worshippers who have decided for us all that they will not accept reality and they will believe in the religion of university as God. As with COVID, our leadership has made the decision they cannot prove and spent trillions of dollars in our own securities to perform experimentation that endangers all life on earth. Not our choice. just like going to war, not our choice. Leading other nations to do the same is evidenced by 130 major experiments, or more correctly, all the universities of the world saw, like the lawyers of Mesopotamia, there's money to be made here, go get it. And that's all they want to do. They just want to have money, like you. And they won't stop like you, because they want the money, and they want the pride, and they want the power. We have to protect ourselves from them, because no matter if those experiments have failed in the past, that doesn't mean they'll fail in the future. We have to defend ourselves. Just one ignition, one time, anywhere on Earth, and life on Earth is dead. That's same fire, same result as is on the sun. How is that not real? Of course, with the National Ignition Facility, which is Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, a purpose-built machine for billions or trillions of dollars, which 192 individual lasers all focused on one tiny spot, which they say creates 180 million degrees at 500,000 psi, for the purpose of joining hydrogen into helium, which they proved in 2012 they could not do. Belief is not enough. Belief is not enough. You have to have the evidence. They proved they couldn't do it. But alas, the money is good, the pride is enormous, and the power to make the nation pay regardless of a right or is apparently overwhelming. They are liars, born liars. They worship lies and liars and traitors and thieves and cheats and terrorists, and that's what they do. So our leadership had it to say, funded its belief, and is now funding experiments which can only lead to the igniting a nuclear let's burn atoms fire, or a trillion spent, just like the sun. So I'm discarding your religious worship of universities and legally demanding to see the proof of evidence. Proof that you can, control the fire. It's not a big thing as far as you prove you can control the fire. And of course, since we can't create a nuclear fire to experiment with, it will be just a fantasy guess, a theory. That's all you get, a theory. It isolates the experiment down to one simple thing. If you do ignite the same fire here as is on the sun, and you can't control it, it will burn our planet. 130 major experiments around the world, advertising. They're going to try. They're going to try to bring the sun here. Because like the sun, which burns our skin in summer from 94 million miles away, with a 1,000,000-mile long flame, according to science, there is no possibility of removing the fuel source, because everything is made of atoms. It's fuel. The whole entire planet is made of fuel. Even you. And the radiation alone from the fire cannot be contained, and will melt every living thing in an instant, which you will prove cannot be so, which you cannot prove, but you can go ahead and try. You had your say as government employees who failed. You had your say. Today I demand our say. As the public, you must pay the price of your failures when proven wrong, which is extinction of life on Earth. That's the price of being wrong. No greater cause, no greater evidence of a need to decide for ourselves, no greater delusion of religious cult leaders who claim they cannot be wrong. That worship exists. It's a cult. And their intent is to risk the entire earth on what others believe, but proof is required. You can't just say, I believe, and you are not allowed to say, Jesus, take the wheel, kind of thing. Oh, hide behind the wheel. You drive. And of course, you're going to crash. But anyway, the universities can't say that either. People of government can't say that. Judiciary can't say that. We have to know what is true. Therefore, we want the evidence. Proof of a reality that you can, in fact, control a nuclear fire that is on the sun, or you must stop. As is within the realm of legal remedy, the reality of a courtroom, bound by a courtroom of we the people, who command our government employees to stop all experimentation that risks life or earth right now, requiring a moratorium on all their activities until we decide for ourselves. Not only a moratorium, but you have to cut and completely stop all of the utilities that go into any of these things. All right, so legal assertion of justification by courtroom evidence is subject matter jurisdiction. Our world, it must stop, and we must identify and create the evidence by their own vote, the evidence by their own existence. What can you prove? Can you do that? Can you control this fire or not? And gravity is not a solution. Claiming that the world will just take care of itself, that's not a solution. That's not a reality. It's just an escape. It won't work, because there's no going back from igniting a 1,000,000-mile long flame. 1,000,000 miles. That's what you're trying to ignite. 1,000,000-mile long flame. You can't even imagine how tall that is. 4 times past the moon. Past the moon. So radiation beyond comprehension on a planet made out of fuel. Religion is not warranted. You may not simply believe that university, the failed students of our classroom past, hiding behind the curtain that is university. Open the curtain. No more university. Individuals are back there making decisions. Individuals, citizens, people who hate you are making decisions. Redress trial means you will produce the evidence, and we the people will then decide for ourselves. No proof of religious cult worship is allowed. Our constitutional mandate is religion shall not decide, invade our government, or make its decisions for us, which establishes there is a criminal contamination leading in this United States. It's called university, which looks to the court to identify religious collusion and corruption of facts, hiding the religious contamination of cult worshippers in their claim that they can't make a decision based on what the university does, because the university is the expert. The university is God. They can't make a decision on the university. The university is God. It's free. It's absolutely untouchable. Well, it ain't. So, a courtroom for the legal remedy for life on earth. Call it a redress, as is the Constitution. While jurisdiction is beyond the realm of that courtroom, it's not beyond our own decision to decide. The courtroom cannot decide to risk our lives, and it cannot decide that our lives are being risked, but we can. In other words, you can't just depend or blame a judicial judge. You have to do it for yourself. They stand in the way of you doing it for yourself, and that is criminal contamination. So I need a courtroom called redress that creates a real-world test of redress, which is the investigation of constitutional mandated law, to prove we will decide for ourselves as a nation or world by our vote. Recognizing 1 second too late removes that vote forever. Demanding the evidence requires a courtroom. Demanding a vote decides for us all is the foundation of why a courtroom exists, which identifies we the people shall decide for our nation, state, and world, and not be delayed or denied that vote by calling for evidence to be presented. Prove every claim they say. Prove that adding chaos to nature is somehow not going to end in anarchy, not going to end in Armageddon, which is nature in chaos. Adding chaos, how is it that nature is not going to end in chaos? It's absolutely where they're going with it. And that is, of course, hate. And hate doesn't do anything to help you survive. So what we have done is as best we can in court, where liars are to be punished based upon the crime for removing an intentional liar to prison, of course, intends to let us all die, as is the job of a courtroom. That's what courtrooms are for, is to weed out the liars, so that the evidence is as pristine as it can be made, to allow the best vote possible by we the people, by understanding what is true, as is the job of a court, to prove what is true. That's their job, that's their purpose, that's their, why they're employed. Because our world, our lives, our nation depends upon the evidence being true. That's the job of a court. To call for the evidence and to support it must be true. And we cannot go back in time, which requires us to make the decision now. Because we can't extinguish a nuclear fire. We can't do it. So we have to decide not to do it. To create what is absolutely true with regard to what the universe are doing, when fully recognizing they are gambling with life on Earth and risking the future of every living thing that can or does exist. Think about that. They are risking the future, the life of every living thing that can or does exist. That includes you. That includes, the billionaire, the gambler, the sports jockey, beautiful girl, whatever you want to say is you, that's you. Our entire world is at risk. They want to ignite a nuclear fire just like the sun, which is 94 million miles away and burns your skin in summer. Look at the sun behind a welder's mask, so you can, understand the cost of being wrong. We have the final say, not them. We have the legal obligation to investigate and prove what we need to prove, the safety and security of our world, from religious cult believers, as is university beliefs. We need to remove them. We deserve our legal say. They risk our lives, our everything, as the nation is forced to pay if they are wrong. No greater cause exists than that is the legal purpose intended for redress of grievances. How do you know that is true? We get to decide. It's we are the owners. It's our nation. We get to decide. The legal law of our democracy is enforced upon those employees who have agreed to believe in a cult, rather than to know the value of evidence. Refusing protection for this United States of America by claiming frivolous actions, intentional betrayal, as is the denial of the value of law, because we do know that no one can see within the flames of the sun, and no one can mimic what the sun does in a laboratory. You can't contain it. Therefore, what they know is simply theory, or the fantasy of fools who are willing to believe anything they are told. That's what a cult is. I believe. It doesn't matter what it is. I believe. The leader said so. I believe. But of course, that doesn't make it true. They are risking our lives and our world on religious, we cannot be wrong beliefs, which literally infects our government employees with lies. Redress, which means only major decisions, not governed by the truth of life or constitutional law, says we will decide now, not you. In other words, it doesn't cover everything, but it covers certainly this. Risking the world, risking all life. They cover. There's absolutely no way that redress isn't required. It ain't your job to gamble our everything. It's our job to protect life, state, and nation, and world from those who risk it without a legal right. There's no legal right to risk us all lives. It is your job to use our tax to enhance our existence with the honest freedoms of liberty and not discard our living, which is our own ability to create work for ourselves without sacrificing the nation to those who steal from us and those who control us, and there are no other choices for you to make, as is our own slavery is enforced, with hidden inflation and debts which cannot be paid. In other words, these universities who wanted money for anything they could imagine, and took money for anything they could imagine, and made experiments for anything they could imagine, and sent off, who knows what to where, and who cares, but they did it with our money. Or more correctly, they did it by counterfeiting our currency, and creating inflation, which we are now paying for, because that's how it is. Without reality, there is no money. and it's all a lie. So, but the destruction of resources is far more important than money. And in that risks all of nature and the beliefs that the university can play God. Or more correctly, the people behind the university blanket covering them are playing God, destroying the future of resources with garbage and pollution and contamination of life itself by mutilating our own genetics as with code and its results. They can do whatever they want to. They can experiment with you all they want. All right, well, we have to enforce they cannot be wrong with their living or our world, is at risk or being threatened. Claim of their science is abhorrent and a failure to human existence. Because we look at the evidence of our world, and without what we clearly find is a tragedy and its hell for us all, the consequences of fate. The decisions upon which life and world exist are not a game. The realities of overpopulation, jet planes consuming ozone, forcing global warming, forest depletion, allowing the atmosphere to detach from the earth, real thing. Global warming, oxygen losses. We live within a very, very specific range of oxygen requirements. If it falls below a certain level, it's like living on top of a mountain, and that won't work very well. For most, at least. Lots of species extinction, habitat losses, ocean life is facing extinction, whether you believe that or not. Poison the earth by the trillion ton, garbage dumped on mountains made by humans by the quadrillion ton. Or take over our lives with claims of terrorism, discarding our laws and selling our nation, and ruining our democracy. That's all that universities have done for us. And of course, not a single solitary thing for this is what we need to survive. None of that exists. This is what we need to survive does not exist in this world because university leads. And they lead to chaos. They believe that, life exists because of chaos, so, hey, they're God. Chaos is their answer. Our government has been useless or an unbridled threat to our very existence of life on earth. That's what our employees have done for us. We've added to that the beginning of real-world personal grievances as a method of demonstrating not only are there risks to an entire world of life, there are personal issues, extortion, betrayal in healthcare without policing of any kind, and a failure to throw the criminals in jail, a patent office which steals and intentionally fails the law, a failure of the press because they're sold for the highest bidder, which is always the rich, failures to educate all the children for life, or they just use them to indoctrinate into a cult, or refuse to protect them from resource loss, a refusal to protect the future or anything, as they plunder our state and nation with their greed. We found the terrorists. They are called University. Their group, far more responsible than any other humanity on earth. They are cult believers called our government, the United States of America. Cult worshippers. Cult worshippers. You can't question the university. The university is God. So, if that's the nation you want to be, okay. If you want to risk all life on earth, okay. If you want to risk your eternity, because, killing off an entire creation, an entire planet, killing it off intentionally because you just don't care, okay. It's your choice. It's your choice. But, fantasy and delusions will not control sunfire, and it will not extinguish itself. A 1,000,000-mile long flame. Ignition is forever. It burns the bond in atoms. There is no second chance to be wrong. Once is all you get. Once is all you get. There is no we'll do it better the next time, or whatever they want to tell you. Once is all you get. Only the investigation of evidence, proven true as best we can, provides us with a vote. One time and done. No, we'll do it again and we'll do it again and we'll do it again until we get the answer that some of the people who are in control believe they want. None of that. One vote, one time, this or that, one direction or the other, all done. Deciding for ourselves the future we will protect or deny. No belief, no cult worship of universities or their claim of evidence without substance or value. No false claims or false language or foreign math or any of that. Truth as best we can for all of us to understand. Truth decides, nothing more or less. As best we can. Belief is outlawed. Nobody gets to believe. You don't get what you want. You don't get what you want. That is fantasy. What is true is what we will decide. And even if you take what is true and create a fantasy out of it, you had a choice. And that's what you did. So we are defending ourselves, inviting the whole world of humanity to join. It's called redress. It's called, we get to decide as a world. We get to decide as the whole world is involved. Why should not the whole world vote? Literally, the whole world is involved. Doesn't matter where you are on the planet. It doesn't matter if you dig a hole 100 feet down. It doesn't matter if you try to escape to another planet, which is stupid. You're not going to have any oxygen. You're just going to die. But then, that's what universities do. They try to kill you. So it doesn't matter. We're all equally involved in life or death of this world. Igniting sunfire upon it is igniting sunfire upon it. Take a look at the sun. Same fire, same result. No escape, no hiding. Our earth turns into a sun. That is the price of being wrong. So we have a future to create for ourselves with choices that we make for ourselves. The laws redress our legal right to decide as a nation for ourselves. Our legal authority to change what is broken by creating new law for ourselves. The evidence of freedom established, the realities of liberty enforced, the ownership of democracy clarified by truth, are all formed upon the legal back of redress, our own defense of democracy, the protection of our nation. By its Fifth Amendment law, this Constitution, the fifth article of the Illinois law from the Illinois Constitution, we own redress. It is a guarantee of our law, our government. Or if we don't enforce these things, if you let them refuse you, then you can stop believing in this just one little thing. Is because democracy is dead. The nation has died. The corruption has overtaken you. There's not one thing that you can do about it. They own you as kings or queens or whatever you want to call them. So look at the sun and decide whether you want to bring that fire here or not, because it ain't no game. These are big experiments, trillions spent, 130 major experiments around the world under construction, 90 are underway. They claim to be going on right now. So we have another filing. So this is the third filing. And that is a claim of a better today because of university's defined leadership, as is the diploma. Being superior, they claim to be the new nobility, so they get to decide everything for us. Strewn throughout our lives, the critical question is, are you better off, safer, happier today? Are you? Today than in the past? Is 50 years better past? Is a democracy of voting for ourselves or the end of democracy? People voting for us, to rule over us, to enslave us, even to experiment with our lives, our future, our nation, or everything. Democracy is voting on the law itself, for yourself. Not voting for someone to vote for you, it's voting on the law itself. That makes us a government of ourselves. Us, a government over our society. Because if we make the law, we enforce the law, we then become the government. And we know how to defend ourselves because we made the law. That's what we need to do. And that's what redress is for, to change the Constitution by our own vote. To decide as a nation that we will do what we have to do to change what has to be changed. to take away the insanity, the stupidity, the cult worshiper, to change all of it into something that does actually work for us, to something that will actually survive the future. What the core or essence of belief is in every sheep. Are you a sheep? Did you just follow the herd? Do you just believe whatever the media tells you? That's viewed to be determined what is real. To identify the claim that I'm God here, it's all mine, nothing exists here but what I want. Is that you? Certainly is the university, or more correctly, it is the blanket that covers the people behind the cover that claim to be God and risk our lives. Well, anyway, so they are an army, though, an army of insurgencies, because in fact, all that counterfeited currency primarily went to the people who have a diploma. That's their army. They got to pay the army, of insurgents, people who intend to take our government away from us, people who have taken everything away from us, people who intend to rule our lives and enslave our future. Well, it's not me, but alas, the university gods have failed you. The cult worshippers are always a failure, leaving only the claims of currency as counterfeit numbers and debts beyond measure as your reward. You have numbers. Go ahead, add another $1 trillion to your bank account. Just write it in there. $1 trillion more. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You can claim it. But until you try to spend it, it's not real. But you can imagine it. And that's what numbers do for you. They launder the things that are lies. Anyway, because when we look, one little thing, as is the essence of university and all they teach, one little thing, just focus on one little thing. And then we open the door to realities of what they do not teach, as is the cost of being wrong. If they have a university and you memorize it and you mimic the university and what they teach you, and you get your diploma and you keep your nose down to just one tiny little thing, and you have no idea what the whole mass or the elite of university is doing. You just know one little thing. That's it. And one little thing is not enough. It's not enough. One little thing allows Nazism to invade our lives. That one little thing allows artificial intelligence to control the propaganda media and invade or use power against us all. One tiny little thing allows for fundraising in Congress rather than doing their job. One tiny thing destroys the foundation of democracy, as we all deserve an equal say in our laws. Betrayal takes that away. Our nation, our economy, our money, our everything has been taken away by those who believe they are the superior ones and can do better. Yet hide their theft and failures and criminal conduct, and they all just focus on one little thing. So they don't know what else is being done. So yeah, it's just a shame. Being human is about, I want what I want, that's what I want. I don't want anything but what I want. Give me what I want. Give me what I want. It's all about me. Give me what I want. Nothing else matters but me. That's all that matters. Just give me what I want. And you can, if you go throughout all of humanity, you will hear that 10,000 times a day. Because, everything is about me. Give me what I want. And of course, people who don't tend to end up in depression and so on. And depression is, I didn't get what I wanted. That's what depression is. I didn't get what I wanted. So, we are not alone. Our government cannot survive another billion people. We're 9 billion people. 9,000 groups of 1 million people each, growing at a rate of another million every 4 days. And there will be no water, no food, no space, no life left for other creatures, nothing but war with weapons of mass destruction. kill 1 billion people, and there are still 8 billion people left, or it's just 1 in 9. That ain't enough. And at a current rate of 1% rise in population in less than 10 years, another billion people will return. And cannot simply be asked to die. They won't. 9 billion people. It's 90 million new births above deaths per year. Another 90 million per year. So, we exceeded the capacity of this finite planet to support you, and you will die. You will go to hell because there's nothing left to live for. There's, it's all gone. It's a finite world. It's a finite planet. There's nothing about the things that you do that will survive into the future. We have to change everything that the universities did do. Well, I should say, 99% of everything that the universities did do. There might be something that can be left. You're going to war for water. That's the cost of what you did do, because, water's going to run out. You've exceeded the capacity of the planet to let you do what you want. As is the endless plane flights which produce 1 billion BCUs of heat for global warming. And worse, consume the ozone, which deflects the radiation that would destroy us all. Your method of living is such as air conditioning produces global warming, oxygen losses with every fire and every engine. 9 billion people want to make a drive, just a little drive today. That's 9 billion times a day. Think about that for a minute. 9 billion times a day. Every day. For 100 years. Per person. So, that's going to leave the planet completely uninhabitable. And it will. Completely uninhabitable. So you can refuse to stop screaming. They do it. You can't stop me. Let someone else make a decision. There's extreme weather events occur because of it. You do not stop with endless driving and so on. You strip the earth bare and rob every child of their future. That's you. Want me to repeat it? You destroy every forest, which ends our atmosphere being connected to our planet, and the wind accelerates, which means like other planets with an atmosphere, it will accelerate to near the speed of the planet rotation. The Earth rotates at the equator of over 1,000 miles per hour, which means you are dead, because it takes 100 years to grow a tree. Can't exactly just, whoosh, there it is. It ain't gonna happen. So you can give up. You can give up. Who's stopping you? You can give up. Or not. You can fight to save this earth. Or not. You can, make decisions that will keep the earth alive for quite a long time yet, maybe. Or it might be too late. It could be too late. Tomorrow they could have a nuclear fire that destroys us all. Tomorrow, they can do something to genetics and nature that will cause it all to collapse. Tomorrow, we can run out of water in a 1,000 different ways. Might not be worth doing. But it is a guarantee that we will be extinct if we do not do something for ourselves to keep our planet alive. You wanted, the hospital or the health care, let us survive. But it is death that keeps the planet alive. Without death, you think about how many people there would be on this earth if nobody had ever died. How many people would that be? It would be a very different world. So you pollute the earth in every situation you can by the quadrillion ton, producing garbage mountains to prove, look at me, I win. I have a trophy. And you produce poisons by the trillion ton to invade the water supplies and kill life on Earth, causing your own cancers as well. Your universities have invaded politics and destroyed the security of nations, counterfeiting currency, screaming, we don't have to pay for nothing, give them numbers instead. And that's what they did, laundering numbers with, Wall Street and what have you, to hide the fact that it's not real. The GDP claim $30 trillion or so, that's not real. That's just a lie. It's not real. They claim that most of the money comes from banking. That's not real. Bankers counterfeit currency. That's real. A fact that will demand war or the incineration of a nation might be the best way. You get to incinerate the world and it's all over. Or you can go to hell, and cannibalism will come quickly after. Or, Satan, which means let's kill this world, is the university at large. And everything the universities do, as is let's inject chaos into nature, which is Armageddon. Let's burn the same fire here as is on the sun, as it Hades, which means extreme and eternal terror. Let's poison everything, who cares? That's what they do. Let's distribute weapons of mass destruction, keeping biological weapons for ourselves. If we only had a vaccine to keep us safe while we kill the rest. All the while screaming, I was right, I was right, I was right, as is extreme arrogance, playing God. Extreme pure apathy, nothing matters but me, and absolutely disrespect, which is kill it all but me. And we see in life and world, the ocean life is nearly extinct from all the things humans do. And while you might see on television things that look like they're okay, they were taken, decades back. Not today. We see in government the curse of Nazism and all things university driven. We see across the world an absolute denial of everything true. A curse upon everything that is needed to survive by university leadership. We see complete denial of reality by media. Absolute indoctrination of a cult in charge of education, preaching the insanity of universities or God, playing the game of religion that is evolution created life. It did not. It's a lie. A complete rebellion against democracy, as is universities are in charge now and will make every decision, as they have been doing, as they have done. Complete corruption of the judiciary, as is nothing matters but what universities want. A denial of every constitutional law, as is there's no personal property universities own at all. And humanity has no say. The end of personal everything, as is the computer designed life to be, with dissolving everything human, as is the universities in charge of life itself. The future dissolved of life without resources or any living thing left on earth, as is extinction by the choices made. War spreading radiation across the planet, failure without end, which means cannibalism. Pride rampant in the streets as every gun is used to declare I'm right, you are the enemy, and so on. Or, more simply, the sheep are dead, and without hope, nothing survives time. Because they all wanted to believe, they didn't accept that truth has to decide, not want. Is that you? Your want governs your life rather than truth? Truth is required. You need to learn that. Liar means someone who believes by tempting and manipulation that they can make you their slave. That's what liars want. They want you to be their slave. The consequence, taking from you what they want. The university wants everything to prove they're God. Thief means someone who believes you owe them because they didn't get what they wanted. So you owe them, and you didn't give them what they wanted. Regardless of a right, universities destroy everything by stealing it all with counterfeiting and debts that we are supposed to pay. Traitor means someone who believes nothing is important but what I want for me. There is only me, damn you to hell, me is all that matters. Universities and their cult followers shouting, nothing matters but me, as our entire planet dies from arrogance, apathy, and pure disrespect. Terrorist means someone who says, fear is not enough, I want to kill them all, as hate becomes living with life. Destroying nature, poisoning life, polluting the planet, cursing energy, even the world, destroying everything required to survive, as universities have proven to be Satan on earth, or the Antichrist if you like, instead. Whore means someone who believes money is the only important thing, and they surrender their body to it. And that does mean sacrificing someone or something else to get the money. Universities believe with money we're God and steal from us all so they can have money. Cheat means someone who believes they can stop, create the trap and control you, or fear controlling your world to make you sacrifice and pay for them. Turning nations into Nazis, as is this America. The curse of human existence spreads to consume life itself. Believer means someone who wants what they want, because truth doesn't matter. When you are the judge, you become God to you. The liar shouts, of course, that university is their God, and with control over media, government, education, everything, they run their cult in ways Hitler could only have dreamed of, screaming, "We will show you how to be God ourselves. You just have to be the slave." Excuse me. Thug means someone who does not care about anything or anyone. With a cashless society, anybody can be targeted with computers and removed from society or life in 1,000 ways, without society to stop them. Anyone want to guess what robotic soldiers are for? Or robots anywhere with one single command can become your murderers. If they only had a power source, they'd be everywhere. They really would. Criminal means someone who believes that the law does not matter. Force does. Universities scream, "Nobody can stop us, we are in charge." Let the puppets scream they are worthless, and now that the universities are in charge. Which means, they get to play God. Tyrant means someone who believes all they have to do is make a complete example appear out of a few and the rest will obey. They can kill as many as they want. Plenty more, of course. And the world will attest to that too. We have 9 billion people. Who's going to miss a few? And all the sheep whisper, "Somebody has to die, but don't let it be me," as they stand at the slaughterhouse door. Cult means followers want a leader to decide. Their fault, not mine. And he or she wants to play God until truth crumbles the game into oblivion and all into the abyss together. Because you made a decision, just like your leader. Instead of a decision that the leader makes, you made the decision to let the leader decide for you. Same thing. You are guilty. It's your truth. With media, the people believe whatever they are told by university expertise. The university tells the media what to say, and media repeats it. They have no brain. They are the mice who say whatever it is that the university says. Why a brain is useless in a media world. You don't get to use your brain. You get to believe. You get to mimic and memorize, just like the diploma. You get to do exactly what you did for your diploma. Mimic and memorize what the leader says and repeat it. Or we give you pain and suffering instead. So law means all of us have determined this liberty is the price of a secure government which justifies our society with fair play for all. Or when we all make the law which then governs us all, nobody can be made an example of, because we are all in this as one. Same for all. The law is then the enemy of anyone who takes retribution against whoever so creates fear without true and justified cause. Curse the law of us all. We are the university who want rules to identify and control you. Will end. Love identifies happiness, creates sharing and caring, is honored by respect and is constant in all things born of law. Intensity of life when joined as one. The universe shout, hear the call of the dead, because they don't want to hear about love. They want to hear about power. Death is the end of choice, the end of movement, regardless of what you believe. Only truth, the reality is the law governing existence, will decide now. Believe as every man gets, the claim of 70 virgins, slaves to do with whatever he pleases is a lie. There's no such thing. Nobody's going to be your slave. Nobody is going to be your slave. You're not going to go off in some form of heaven beyond the earth and find yourself a king of anything. It doesn't exist. And other elements of Satan in charge, whatever you want to, liars mean liars. There's none of that. None of that. Truth decides. Life is a communication of thought. Think about that. Life is a communication of thought, the construction of freedoms and the disciplines and order of law, and the values of force conceived with respect for the consequences to be decided. The critical definition is belonging to the family of life or discarded from it. As for hate, the demand is to play God, and the universe scream, evolution is our God. Chaos is the method, and every accident opens the door to take whatever you want from what war will give. As is, that is, the reward is obvious. Because there's only love in truth. There's only love, as Jesus plainly pointed out, or hate. It's just love or hate. And all those in the middle don't actually count. All those in the middle are believers who want what they want, and want doesn't give you anything. You're going to die in your want. Make a choice, love or hate. Eternity means a dimension of force beyond action to change it, or a reaction to alter it. That controls the universe itself. Are we not gods? Universities kill whatever they want by proclaiming it's all science. But that's, just in time, and that's what the universities do. It's not eternity at all. Thought means a dimension of freedom that surrenders to the choice of life. A desire that keeps destiny or fate that divides us by our own consequence. Keep your nose down and marry just one little thing. Keep your nose down, because there is no life beyond this for you. You are one grain of sand and need to know nothing else. That's what the university teaches. Just do one little thing and let the university decide everything else. Not exactly freedom, is it? Dimension means an expression or experience within the boundaries and limits of what can withstand the forces which work against it, as is life. We will scream in war and build what we want, as is the carcass of our enemies, those who would not bow down to our feet. It's a proof of history. That's what men do. But that's not what a dimension is. That's time. And beyond time, there's only dimensions of force, which will control our lives, assuming that you get to have that. Patriot means to confront the enemy with law, to organize and teach as best you can against those who are condemning the rest to fail, to accept the duty to demand an investigation for truth, to honor those who did their job for life with the respect they deserve for honor, the decision to fight against the insurgency, turn back the rebellion, identify the anarchy, and deny rules rather than laws. So, not blind obedience, but truth of value for the nations and the world of life. To accept truth decides, not want or war. Accept the cost to stop an entire world from dying. That's what we are doing. We are killing off our world a little at a time, and soon they will be past the point of no return if it isn't already. In other words, we cannot stop now, because if you take all the, if you eat all the seed for next year's crop, there will be no next year's crop. And if you don't eat the seed for next year's crop, you're going to die before that time. But if you do that, is no future for anybody. So, these are the things that are real. These are the things that we have to contend with. These are the things that, you chose when you chose what you chose, to let universities lead. So universities are your God. Never forget you owe them, as slaves do owe their masters, so they say. That's what they claim. With absolute obedience through cult worship, as is a university diploma. If you don't obey the university cult, you don't get the job to pay back the university, and the university comes and attacks you as a slave who is thrown out into the street. That's your fate. And the people say, we are free, you can't condemn us with all that. We have what we want, that makes you wrong. Yet the future reveals the evidence of extinction is your choice as you aid and abet the enemy. Even though you have what you want today, as it is with your future, nothing will exist tomorrow. You destroyed every resource, you destroyed every foundation of life. Just death and hell is left. And we sit on the edge of there is no return from that. Hopefully we're not quite beyond the grave yet, but I don't know. Nonetheless, we then construct the disciplines that are inherent in this lawsuit. We're looking at the lawsuit again. Even though this comes from the fighting, this is part of the deal. So we know that an explosion is not a fire. Their physical existence is dramatically different, so they cannot describe what is going to be a nuclear fire by what they know to be an atomic bomb. They cannot do that. It is not the same. Consequently, you can't compare them. And consequently, I have no clue. It's just, math is not evidence. There is no math for it. They have no experience with sunfire. You cannot govern the control of a nuclear fire with mass related to a fission event, such as is an atomic bomb or a nuclear power plant, which governs the stream of electrons. That's not what it is. A nuclear fire strips the atoms of the neutron, the atom of its neutron, and induces so the proton escapes for destruction over time. It's not a long time, but over time. You cannot claim an element that does not exist based solely on a millisecond flash on a computer screen. It does not exist unless you can prove it actually exists. Same as all the other elements. Unless same tests, prove it. You cannot claim you know how the sun works on the inside as a fire without the evidence of experimentation. That does not exist. Only theory is expressed without scientific merit at all. It's just pure fantasy and theory. Delusions of the imagination that is beyond stupid. Cannot claim fusion exists when you were already proven at Lawrence Livermore Laboratory that it does not exist. And there is no helium from the sun to prove it. You cannot claim the bond of an atom is where the energy resides, because you don't even know what that is. If you cannot, the evidence of the energy itself, what is the bond, which does it contain, how does it contain that energy? Where is the energy stored? And of course the energy is stored in the proton spin. Rotating mass has energy. You cannot assert the sun is made of hydrogen, such as all you can see is the ash cloud, according from the fire. And you can't make any decision based on what's at the core of the sun. According to science, a 1,000,000-mile long flame. So where is the helium? They say with every BTU. Gravity is primarily dark energy. More distinctly, the proton of an atom spins to create atomic energy. The neutron, or dark energy, is the containment of that energy so that time can exist by bleeding off that spin with electrons, which are then used to initiate the energy or electricity that we use, because without containment the spin would dissipate and die. To contain atomic energy, a spin, a slightly greater amount of force must be used to contain it, which is the basis of gravity and why larger volumes of mass can attract smaller volumes of mass. There are more neutrons there. Electricity is generated by the spin of a proton and its influence on electrons, which form outside the neutron. When the electron has achieved sufficient speed in its energy, causes the electron to be lost from orbit, and with direct energy that goes to a distant point and is lost. Although Alternating energy pushes energy out of the electron at a specific distance, and then it calls it back to be refilled with more energy. It's kind of like a pump. Bang. Okay, we have to stop now. So, well, I'm going to quit trying to teach you something. There's just no point. But I'm going to remind you of what 3 graduate genetic students told me when they had said they had working on their doctorates, and their answer to what happens if you destroy nature entirely. What are you going to do then to repair what you've done? And they said to me, as they claim apparently of all geneticists, we don't have to worry about destroying nature because evolution will just make something else in 1 billion years or so. That was their answer. Complete arrogance. Life doesn't matter. Complete apathy. We won't care about anything. And total disrespect for every living thing on earth. That was their answer. That was the university's claim, the university's decision, the university's teaching of what life meant to them. I want you to think about that. And remember that this lawsuit is about our lives. It's not about their lives. It's about our lives. You know, they can fall into the depths of hell or creation or whatever it is you think ought to be done. It doesn't matter, and you don't get to decide what is good or bad about them. I don't get to decide. They're insane, beyond insane, but that was in the past, and nobody wanted to deal with the realities of the day. In the past, they were all way too busy trying to be greedy and selfish and get all the prizes for themselves so they could throw them in the trash. So this lawsuit is about, or this trial of what our government is. It's claimed to be a democracy. We the people decide, but of course that's not so. And that's because the universities have taken it away from us. And they've taken it away from us as a 2-year-old child having a tantrum does, because we let them, or you let them. It's a nuclear fire, just like the sun, is just as arrogant as it can possibly be. The universities are trying to play God, trying to prove they can be God. And of course, who could possibly control the sun except for God? So they want to bring their proof here to our lives. And they're gambling with every life on the planet. It is, on theory and the fantasy that they can control a nuclear fire, which they claim in their own way that it's a 1 million mile long fire. They claim that they don't have to know how to control that because, this is important, because gravity on Earth will not let the fire sustain itself. It'll just go poof out into outer space and be done. And they don't even know what gravity is. So, are you as insane as they are? And the answer to that is, of course, yes you are. Because you let it go this far. Because you wouldn't wake up to any degree throughout the ages, the decades that I've been trying to talk to you. And stupidity and insanity and so on. And I wouldn't be talking to you now except for the fact that, they're getting closer and closer to the end of life on Earth by University Decides. So if you don't get up off your ass and do something to stop this insanity, you're going to end up with extinction. And I guarantee you won't like that. Not even if you have all the numbers in the world. Go ahead, add another $1 trillion to your bank account. Doesn't matter until you spend it. So anyway, how these experiments are allowed to proceed, the price of being wrong is that same fire, same result, Earth becomes a sun. Easily happen. Even if you don't think so. You are a believer if you don't think so. And a believer just believes whatever it is that he wants, or she wants. You don't need no proof to be a believer. That's the whole point of being a believer. You don't need no damn proof. All you need is whatever you want. Whatever you want is true. I believe the sun is pink today, or green, or whatever it is. Doesn't matter if I believe that. That's what it is. Isn't that right? You can believe whatever you want, can't you? Whether the rest agree with you or not doesn't really matter. You can believe whatever you want. But you can't avoid the price of truth. You know, if you ignite the same fire as the sun here, or if you completely destroy nature itself, can't bring that back. Or if you die, you can't pick yourself off the ground and live again. You're dead. So this trial is for redress of grievances. We decide for ourselves. Even if you're wrong, it doesn't matter. If you decided for yourself and you know you decided for yourself, there's no place to hide. You know, and you can't hide from letting the others decide for you either. So this is a case of, are you going to decide for yourself or are you not? It's about constitutional law in this United States. First Amendment redress of grievances is the law. You know, if you decide for yourselves that the risk is not worth the price of being wrong, then you stop them. You don't let it go on. Therefore, you know, the courtroom is thought, because we have to have a legal solution. This has to be the law. You can't be, fighting with weapons and stuff. 9 billion people, kill a billion people. Kill a billion people, and that's only 1 in every 9 of us. 1 in 9 is a billion people. You can't fight it with war. You have to fight it with law. Because all of us can say no. And that's what we have to do. No gambling with the earth. No gambling with life. No gambling with the future. No gambling with every child. No gambling with the ocean. No gambling with global warming. No gambling at all. And of course, that's what the world wants to hear. Humanity wants to hear, we're God. We get whatever we want. There is no price for being wrong. As is university, found that to be their saving grace. They didn't have to make anything true. All they had to do was give you what you want. And they did. And so the legal right to decide for ourselves, if the risk is too much, is something that they just ignored. Science can only be explained by math, some say, but that is false. That is absolutely untrue. They explain nothing by math. Not enough to count. All it is a measuring tool. It is a measuring tool. So how do you measure an entire world is dead? Well, you just say it's extinct, because the math doesn't matter, does it? So, about the fire of the sun, they have to prove what it is. You can't just, they claim this, they claim that. They use fancy pictures and lights and media of all kinds to say, we are right! But they can't see within the sun, can they? They can't see within the sun. They claim it's 1,000,000-mile long fires, and they can't see down to the bottom. They don't know what it is. And they avoid and deny all the laws that they do know. It is ridiculous. It is insane. It is Satan on earth. Nonetheless, we know that a fire releases energy. We feel that energy. It heats our world. In the summer in particular, you feel the heat of the sun. Do you not? Do you not? Although they say that according to the universities, There's no fuel being consumed on the sun. There's no fuel, no fuel, no fuel. It's all magic. That just ain't true. So, we can go on with this and go on with this and go on with this, but that doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any difference. What we do know is that the difference between a molecular fire and a nuclear fire is about 4 million times more. Take a look at the atomic bomb versus TNT. It's about 4 million times more. And that creates a nuclear vacuum, and that creates a method of gathering up atoms, fuel for the fire, into the fire, and sustaining the fire forever, just like the sun, until they run out of atoms or a supernova event exists. So, I could go on and on and on, but it really just no point. We have my website is James F. Osterbur, OSTERBUR.com. You can look and find an exact copy of what was given to the court, a response to the court. You can, buy a book. It's called USA Government on Trial. This is not what we paid for. This is not our government. This is the overthrow of our government. This is democracy is dead. USA Government on Trial 2026. If you want to, you can read it here, or you can pay for a paperback book. The price is dependent upon how many are sold. So, there are, 1,000 different tragedies of human behavior. And I am basically tired of talking to you. So you make a decision to fight for your world, to give your world back to yourselves, rather than to the university decides. You look to find a brain. That'd be good for a change, because instead of just following along as a herd, same road, same result, all die. Instead of doing that, protect your nature, protect your world, protect your water, protect your earth, protect your everything from the enemies of life on earth, which is the university. Now, you can claim that the university is your God. You can believe anything you want. You can believe anything you want. And it's not up to me to tell you that you're wrong. You can believe it. You can. But that doesn't make it true. It doesn't make it true at all. All right, well, instead of trying to do anything else, I'll remind you that Noah's flood is actually proven by fossil fuel. All of that had to be gathered together. All of that had to be buried underneath thousands of feet of debris and what have you in some places, and it's absolutely proven true. Because we know of no other method, no other evidence that can gather that material together and bury it all at the same time. It's not like the dead or the damned of a university who claims, it's an elephant grave, they all walked there and then they all died there at the same spot. That's how it happened. No, it didn't. Idiots. So I'm going to read to you the court's opinion on the fact that we can't let them ignite a nuclear fire, or that redress is the law, but they refuse. So we'll just read it. It's dismissed with prejudice. That's what they say. And there's a warning somewhere. Anyway, the text order is, let's see, on 4/24, The magistrate judge indicated that a review of the pro se plaintiff's complaint raised a few threshold concerns. First, the complaint failed to set forth a short and plain statement. But if I do, they limit the trial to that. So I didn't. Both the grounds for the court's jurisdiction and the claim that the pleader is entitled to relief. There is no grounds that the court will adhere to, and no relief from the university is God. The university is God. Don't you understand that? The university is God. Believe, damn you, believe. That's what they want you to do. You're supposed to believe. Never, ever, ever question the leader. Never do that. That's a cult. So, anyway, as required by the Rule 8, nor did the complaint set forth any cognizable legal claims. In other words, the fact that they're threatening all life on earth doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Or make a coherent demand for legal remedy. The fact that they're risking our lives doesn't account to be a legal remedy. Stop doing that is not a legal remedy. You know, if somebody is shooting to get a terrorist of any other form, shooting people up, a legal remedy for that would seem to be don't shoot people. Or don't shoot life. But they say no. And the court noted that while the United States and the state of Illinois were listed as defendants, these defendants are generally immune from suit. That is not democracy. That is not democracy. Constitutional law is the government, not our employees. They don't get to be immune. Not from constitutional law. They can be immune from smaller things, but not from constitutional law, which is our government. It is our government. We, the people, made it the law. And they are just employees. Former neighbors. Just like you and me. The magistrate, judge, and defendant ordered the plaintiff to show cause in writing no later than May 8th, why this case should not be dismissed for lack of jurisdiction. They have no jurisdiction. You know, the fact that it's constitutional law doesn't order them to make a decision. In other words, the Constitution has no bearing on the court. The Constitution is worthless to the court. That's what that means. That's what that means. And of course, they're not entitled to do that. So, the plaintiff filed not one but two responses. Yes, I did. To expand the filing so that we know exactly what the trial is intended to be. The court has reviewed those responses with the continuation of the plaintiff's complaint, calling it rambling, lengthy, incoherent, and repetitive, among other shortcomings. Now, how much do I need to do to verify the fact that fantasy and delusion is not enough? Theories are not enough to gamble all life on earth. Think about that for just a minute. They're gambling, literally gambling all life on earth. And they're going to say to you that, we created the atomic bomb and the world didn't die. Well, we can say that might just be lucky. Because it certainly wasn't thought that did that. Nonetheless. So, am I entitled to relief from the university decides everything? The university gets to play God. The university is, gets to destroy nature and everything else. The university is God. The university is the government. The university is everything. The university is, the propaganda media. The university is everything. The university is, COVID and everything else. The university is the expert. The university is everything. No, it is not. But we have to enforce that as a society because there's no other way. And you can't let them claim to be the experts. You have to make them prove the evidence. See the difference between that? As opposed to the child that says, I'm the expert! It's all me! It's me! It's me! But the evidence says, no, it's not. They claim that they know the sun. They claim that they can, not enough gravity here. We don't have to control the fire. Releasing a 1,000,000-mile long fire. They don't have to control it. Throw them in the forest fire. See if they need to control it. Anyway, don't do that. It's against the law. Shouldn't do that. Oh well. Let's see. Rather than a short and plain statement on the grounds of court's jurisdiction and a claim showing he is entitled to relief, the plaintiff instead makes sweeping and exceptionally general arguments about several unrelated topics. Are these unrelated? I don't think so, but it's up to you to decide. You are actually the government of the United States of America. We, the people, that's what that means. We are the owners here. That's what that means. We get to decide. Our employees do not get to decide. They swear to obey the law. They refuse to obey the law. And we get to decide if there should be a punishment for that. That's what we get to decide. But that's called redress of grievances. And it is the law, but unless we enforce it on the people who don't want us to enforce it, the people who say, no, it's not the law. People who say, because, they're avoiding the law, they're pretending the law doesn't exist. They are, in fact, in rebellion against the United States of America. And they don't want that spread around. Every courtroom judge says, I don't want to do this. Because, the people that pay their bill, the people that, give them money and give them, pensions and titles and rewards and what have you, are not the people who are the government. We are the government. But the others, the little court minders that make sure that the judge does what he's told, intended to do, which is to protect the powerful, isn't allowed to, create democracy. So anyway. So while a court must construe a pro se's complaint liberally, they give an excuse for that. This particular plaintiff, that would be me, is no stranger to litigation. It's true. He has previously filed 11 cases in this district. His cases were several times against either the United States or state of Illinois, and his cases were reportedly dismissed for lack of subject jurisdiction. Or in other words, in the end, it's a case of, prove that you can control the fire, it doesn't matter. It runs deep. The fact or the idea that your employees are a religious cult who believes the university is God hasn't changed in years and decades. They all say the university is God. You cannot question the university. The university is God. They are the expert. They are God. They have the final say. It doesn't matter. The court doesn't matter. Nothing matters. The government doesn't matter. Nothing matters, but the university is God. Remove the blanket of university, and all you're left with are people. And people are not God. That's all you're left with, people. Former classmates. Who is God among the former classmates that you knew? I didn't know any. So anyway, they claim, dismissed for lack of subject jurisdiction or failure to state a proper claim or for being wholly insubstantial or frivolous. Is it frivolous to gamble with the entire world? No, in a believer's world. In a religious cult, you can't argue with the cult. They are believers. They believe what they believe because they believe it. And you cannot avoid that. You cannot push that away. You cannot change that with truth. You cannot change that with evidence. You cannot change that with anything. They are religious zealots. Religious. They know. Not because of evidence or truth or something. They know because the leader says so. The leader is God. And we're using God in a sense, we're not talking about a creator. We're talking about people who say, you can't stop me, and I can't be wrong. I'm God. I can't be wrong. You can't stop me. But the reality of it is, we're going to stop them, or they're going to stop us. So I don't care to talk to you. In fact, I don't. But it's an entire world. Everybody dies, including me, incinerated by the fools who believe they can ignite a fire, and there are no consequences to that. Which is the university in particular. No consequences for the things that they have done. No consequences for poisoning the water, no consequences for global warming, no consequences for anything. And of course, all of the believers who want what they want say, yes, the university is God. No consequences for us. We can steal everything we want to and let the children die. Who cares? As is what they do. As is what you do. So this is a final. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is final. You get to decide to rise up and make a difference for your life or not. It's your choice. So we're going to continue a little bit. So the plaintiff attempted to file, let's see. A judge in the district enjoined the plaintiff from filing any further lawsuits. That was me, and I had all the evidence of non-compliance that I could possibly use, so I'll let that go. Return, attempted to file a complaint in particular order. Another judge in the district in the very same day noted that a frequent flyer, who is me, in the courtroom, and all his complaints except for one were dismissed for reasons mentioned regarding lack of subject matter jurisdiction. In other words, you cannot argue with the university. You cannot demand proof of what they're doing. You cannot stop them from doing anything. They are God. They are the government. You can't stop them. They're immune. So the court, in all its versions, from the tiny little mouse court to the U.S. Supreme Court, all of it, Illinois Supreme Court, all of it, says, no, you can't change anything. Democracy does not exist. That's not what we do. That's not what we do. Democracy does not exist. Democracy does not exist. Except for the fact that it's supposed to exist. It's the law. Redress of grievances, which is the majority of what the courtroom trials were about. Constitutional law was dismissed. Lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Of course, there is no such thing as subject matter jurisdiction outside of constitutional law. So these are criminals. It's an organized criminal act to deny the Constitution of the United States. These are criminals. These are organized by the power that is in control of this nation, and the power that is in control of the nation is the power that gets to have all the money. And it's the universities that get all the money. Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars spent for the university purposes. Whatever it wants, it doesn't matter. The university is God. The university is God. The university is immune. The university is, gets whatever he wants. The university decides COVID, so you have to spend trillions of dollars because the university decides COVID. The university declares it a pandemic, even though history proves that no more people died in that year or the year or the year or the year after that than would be expected normally. No pandemic. None. No pandemic. And it wasn't for their stinking vaccine, which just experimented with you more. They had to have an excuse to get money. They had to find something to get money. They had to find something so that they could prove that, you can't control us. We are the saviors of this world. You have to have money. And of course, $60,000 per shot was only just the beginning. Just the beginning. So, plus they get to take over control of the entire United States of America and played games with the entire world. Satan on earth. Literally Satan on earth. Or, like I say, you can call it Antichrist if you want to, because, their act or their defiance or their intent is to destroy the world. Whereas, Jesus was here to save the world by telling you the difference between love and hate. Showing you the difference between love and hate so you can make up your own mind. So, I'm more or less doing the same thing in some form or fashion that he did, is that I'm showing you the difference between the university is God and the university is not God. That, that the university is in control of everything. The university is government. The university is, you decides all of it, or we get our democracy back. We have to take it back because they're not going to give it to us. But we have to take it back by law. Kill 1 billion people. And it's only 1 in 9. 1 billion people. Just 1 in 9. Things have changed. In the last 50 years, the population has doubled. And you don't get to say that it doesn't matter. It does matter. This is a finite planet. And we are spread out everywhere. And if you don't stop doing everything that you're doing, we're going to be extinct. It doesn't matter whether you stop the university is from being a complete asinine failure of life and world and hope and everything. If you don't stop them, we're still going to die. Because overpopulation will kill us, as will so many other things. So anyway, plaintiffs and all his complaints, except for one, were dismissed for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. So you decide whether or not the constitutional law of redress of grievance is subject matter jurisdiction for the court or not. Is it subject matter jurisdiction for the court or not? It's the law. It's the Constitution, which is our government. It is what they swore to uphold. But they refused. That's what it means when they say no subject matter jurisdiction. They refuse to obey the Constitution as law. They have a better plan. They're going to take it over. They are the insurgency against us all. Insurgency. That means that they're stuck in like little bitty mice and parasites everywhere, and they intend to take whatever they want because they're hiding out of view of most sight. You don't see them much. They're here, but you don't see them. But they're stealing everything they can. So anyway, there's I'm restricted from filing any further lawsuits, motions, or pleading in all divisions, other than habeas corpus, which means, in case of a crime, in which you use a party dependent to the court, unless filed through the counsel or directed through the clerk. So you attempted to file, didn't comply, order the case, order to show cause is now discharged. The court now dismisses the case for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. The case is dismissed with prejudice. Clerk is directed to enter the judgment and close this case. The clerk is further directed to send a copy of that text order, and there's a warning in here somewhere, don't file no more, or we're going to be mean. So I'm going to let you do it. It's your government. It's your Constitution. It's your future. It's your world. Your world. It's not theirs. It's your world. Are you going to let them have it? Or are you going to say that, no, you've gone too far. You've gone too far. We're not going to let you ignite nuclear fire on Earth. What further proof of Satan do you need? What further proof of Satan on earth do you need than people who are trying literally to create the earth into a sun? They're literally trying to create the earth and the sun. Take a look at the sun. They deliberately say they're going to bring that here. Going to bring that here. Radiation and all. Radiation and all. And they say, also, we can't do it, but we can get all the money for it. But they might just accidentally actually ignite a nuclear fire. Instead of playing the game for, we're all employed now, we're saviors, we're great, we're, getting billions of dollars paid to us for doing nothing but playing games. Or you can stop them. But then if you stop them and go back to truth, truth will reveal many things that you don't like. But that doesn't matter, because if you're going to survive, there's only one way to survive. Truth survives. There's only one way. Truth survives, lies do not. So we have to decide whether or not you're going to let truth lead. Whether you're going to let truth decide whether no matter what you want, will truth decide or not. And in other words, one of the things that you're going to have to decide is that all the planes that you love to ride, let's fly everywhere. It's either the planes stop or the ozone stops. And if the ozone stops, all the plants that can't hide in your shelters away from radiation are going to die, and if they die, the animals die, and you die, and so on. Overpopulation, of course, you have to stop that, and that means that you can't have what you want, and you can't have what you want, can't have what you want, can't have what you want. It's a choice. Can't have what you want. Twice as many people, you wanted those. But now you have twice as many people on a finite planet. And if you don't stop, if you don't access, the actual evidence that proves what is or is not true, then you just cause your own death. This is down. You wanted to be God. The university wanted to be God. You want to be God too. Okay, you're God. So now you have to make a decision for life or death for this planet, because the reality of the planet is that you can't just play the game. You have to actually deal with the consequences of what is or is not true, and what is or is not the law of life itself. And you don't do that. You deny that. You run away from that. You hide and believe that, I'll just go off into the mountains. I'll just do that. You can't get me there. But of course, if they ignite a nuclear fire, just like the sun here on Earth, it will consume the Earth, and that means it will consume you. It doesn't matter where you hide. Doesn't matter where you hide. And if nature is destroyed, that doesn't matter where you hide. And if water is poisoned, it doesn't matter where you hide. And if the ozone is depleted to the point where it doesn't matter anymore, it doesn't matter where you hide, or if the planet itself is overheated to the point where nothing survives anymore, it doesn't matter where you hide. Or if the atmosphere comes loose and accelerates to 700, 800 miles an hour, it doesn't matter where you hide, it doesn't matter. You chose to say, I don't care. You chose that. You say, I don't care. But you will care. It's a guarantee. You're going to care. Because, life is based upon truth. And without truth, you're dead. So, you can go ahead with the universities and lie and lie and lie and lie and cheat and lie and fantasize about all the things that you can be God about with your imagination. But you can't avoid the truth of consequences that come with it. And there is a mountain worth of consequences for what the university has already done, waiting just on the other side of the door. And that's the end of it.